community focus, and
I'd say
add love and respect.
yeah, a lot of people who were there were, you could tell, kind of maybe a rough kind of stereotyping here, but neck tattoos, people who are probably coming out of maybe a rough lifestyle. So and there was probably like a quarter of the people were Latino, maybe too. So
Oh, really?
yeah, I mean,
Good evening. Good evening. Hi. It is great to see the people here today. We appreciate you coming, and welcome to those that are also online. So this is the regular city council meeting. And, as I was just talking to Pastor Monty Sears with Christian Faith Center, who's going to come up and pray, I'm just so thankful that we have amazing spiritual leaders that are willing to spend their time and come pray over us. And I'm thankful that they not only stand here and pray, but they pray all the time. They pray over our police department. They pray over our fire teams. They pray over our staff. They pray over the council. Thank you. It makes a difference. Much of it we may never see, but thank you so much. So would you come forward and open us in prayer and the pledge?
I'd be honored to. Dear Heavenly Father, we come to you this afternoon in Jesus' name. Father, we're mindful that you are a sovereign God. You know the beginning from the end. You knew this evening would be here before you created the heavens and the earth. So here we are, created on purpose for a purpose. And you say in your word, for we are God's masterpiece. He created us anew in Christ Jesus so we can do the good things that he planned for us long ago. So here we are. Would you fulfill your purpose tonight? Give wisdom to our leadership. Bless them. Protect them. Provide for them. And Father, we thank you for the Treasure Valley, for Canyon County, for Nampa, one of the greatest communities in all of America to live. So Father, would you have your will and your way tonight? In Jesus' name, amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Pastor Monty, thank you so much. Thank you. Roll call.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Bruner.
Here.
Dingula.
Here.
Reynolds.
Here.
Haverfield.
Here.
All present.
As we step into the first discussion, which is proposed amendments to the agenda, as Pastor Monty alluded to, one of the greatest nations, today receiving that word, that Wallet Hub, for the 7th year in a row, voted, and it's data, Nampa as the #1 best run city. And what I did was I picked up the phone and called Doug Racine and said, Doug, thank you. Because it really is weighted measure in its spending per capita. We don't rank #1 in all the amenities and in all ways, but the overall ranking, but it has to do with the budget per capita and the stewardship of this city, and it has to do with debt. So when our wastewater loan comes due, it may or may not move us out of that #1 position. Which is great news. The scary thing is we need to make sure that we invest in the future and that we don't leave things behind in our city and that we make the right decisions, but we weigh those decisions heavily every single day in every decision that we make, every meeting that we have. There has been this rhetoric about property taxes, and I tell you what, and it's, we desire not to raise taxes for our citizens, but you know what, we're trying to be good stewards and trying to make wise decisions. And that particular ranking, which is a weighted financial ranking of spending per capita, was evidenced through the Wallet Hub ranking for 7 years in a row. So that's kind of amazing.
It's a team effort with the entire city, so
Yeah.
we just help manage the numbers.
Yes. Well, thank you, Doug, for your efforts. So are there any proposed amendments to the agenda this evening? If not, I would stand for a motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And then next we have the consent agenda. I would stand for a motion to approve the consent agenda as submitted in the packet.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. So as we turn these pages here. So tonight, we don't have any proclamations. We do have the opportunity on the agenda for a public forum for any citizens wishing to speak on an agenda or non-agenda item. Do we have anyone signed up this evening?
No, Madam Mayor.
Okay. I think with that, then I'm going to go ahead and, yes. Oh, my.
No,
And
I apologize, I just saw her name pop up. I'm sorry.
you know, and I always ask, is there anyone in the audience that intended to? And I almost wasn't going to do that. So Tanya, would you come forward and tell us why you're here? And thank you for being here this evening.
Good evening. My name is Tanya Belagante, and I am the Meals on Wheels coordinator at St. Alphonsus Medical Center, and I'm here to just briefly speak with you this evening about the CDBG grant funding that you will be discussing later this evening. I have been the Meals on Wheels coordinator for roughly 9 years now. And I would just like to take a moment to say thank you, Mayor Kling, and to all of the City Council. You guys have supported Meals on Wheels for many, many, many years, and I just want to sincerely tell you how much we appreciate that and how much we appreciate your support for this wonderful and very necessary program. Meals on Wheels is a program that provides healthy, nutritious, hot meals and daily contact to homebound seniors who are unable to provide or prepare meals for themselves due to age, disability, or medical condition. The program serves seniors who have the greatest economic and social needs, including those living in poverty, living alone, and most likely to be vulnerable and frail. Meals on Wheels makes it possible for seniors to stay in their homes by boosting health and well-being. With support from CDBG, Meals on Wheels serves a population of seniors who may experience poor nutrition, social isolation, and require costly public services without the program. The purpose of Meals on Wheels is twofold: to address hunger and social isolation for homebound seniors. Volunteers deliver nutritious meals and provide friendly visits and safety checks that enable seniors to live nourished lives with independence and dignity while staying in their own homes. In order to qualify for the Meals on Wheels program, clients must be age 60 or over, living in the city of Nampa, homebound, and unable to prepare meals due to age-related or health issues. The need for the Meals on Wheels program has increased significantly in recent years. At the beginning of 2018, we were serving approximately 90 meals a day. Currently, we are serving approximately 170 meals per day. As you can see, that is nearly double in just 4 years. The growth in the number of seniors being served by Meals on Wheels is indicative of an urgent need because of an aging baby boomer population, and also the fact that Nampa is an attractive place for seniors to retire. The number of seniors we serve continues to rise.
Madam Mayor, time.
Funding from CDBG helps provide a stable environment with healthy food for frail seniors who otherwise may not be able to continue to live in their own homes. And this is truly a win for our community. Again, I'd like to say thank you for your consideration and your continued support of the Meals on Wheels program. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. And to our St. Alphonsus team, it's always wonderful to see you guys. Thank you for coming. It's good to see you. Is there anyone else that had signed up or intended to? Okay, seeing none, we have an agency report tonight. And as our former council president, Bruce Skog, comes forward for this report, I just want to say, Bruce, you're the beginning of our wallet hub, right? Fiscal, conservative, right, and where we're going. I just want to thank you for your service to our community. And thank you now as you've transitioned into that legislative role, continuing to serve our city. So thank you for being here. Thank you for all you've done as a public servant. You're appreciated.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Yeah.
It's good to be home. I feel like home when I come in here to see all of you. I could make a report on a lot of bills tonight, but my purpose is to talk about one bill, and it's a bill that started with the citizens of Nampa, and I'm particularly proud that this one went through the legislature. It started when Councilman Rodriguez called me, as he does sometimes, as, hey, we have a problem. Would you meet with Lieutenant Kimball for lunch? Well, sure. And he meant he was supposed to be there and buy lunch, but he didn't show up, Councilman Rodriguez. But Lieutenant Jason Kimball, on behalf of the Nampa Police, told me about a problem in human trafficking. And that's something all of us, we live in a Mayberry world in our own bubbles. We don't realize the evil that happens. And human trafficking is very evil. It happens in this community and in Idaho communities with people being trafficked in and out of state. He told me the stories. And I said, well, put them all in jail. He says, we can't. The way the law is written, we can't get convictions. The prosecutors will tell us we can't get the conviction. So I said, well, let's change the law. We ran into opposition that I can't talk about here that would surprise you, the opposition. And so we went over to a meeting. There's a task force, which I won't mention the name of, that's studying this for years, and they didn't want to make any changes to the law. They told us, well, maybe we'll change one word from plural to singular. And Lieutenant Jason Kimball was with me at that meeting, and he got all over him like a bulldog, and it was just fun to watch. And then we needed another bulldog. When we finally got the legislation drafted, we had a new legislator named Jaron Crane from Nampa. And he's, embarrassed to say this, but he could be my son by his age. But he charged in there, and he did not blink. He had opposition from old-time lobbyists, from different people of power, and he stood strong. And it sounds like it was an easy bill because we had near unanimous support for it when it finally got to the floor. But it almost died a couple of times because of the backdoor people that opposed this, that wanted to keep the law in a way that we could not prosecute these things. But we had a lot of heroes in this, and I'm going to make sure I mention everybody. And good Senator Lakey, he's the chairman of the committee in the Senate that helped this get through on that side. So we're going to put an end to the human trafficking as best we can now. Effective July 1, we're going to go after these people, and I want to thank you, Madam Mayor, for letting your cops be cops. Other mayors would have said, just keep doing the same old thing. You turned them loose, and they made a difference. Detective Benson was there to testify. He's the one that's going to lead the charge in getting these arrests. He helped us to get this legislation through also. And then, of course, our Chief Joe Huff, he lets his cops be cops too. He doesn't just do the same thing over and over. He makes a difference. And this is going to help all of the state of Nampa, or state of Idaho. I think of Nampa as the center of my state. But Jaron Crane, I just can't say enough good about a new legislator that could push this through. Senator Abby Lee, the Attorney General stepped in at a key moment and helped us out. And that was good. But anyway, we're going to get successful arrests, and we're going to protect our citizens by bringing those who do evil to justice. And this is victim-conscious bill also. So without further ado, I have official commemorative copies of the bills that have to be signed by the Speaker of the House, Mike Moyle, Scott Bedke, President of the Senate, and Brad Little, the Governor. And these are presentations to those of you who helped, and these are not easy to get at times, but we just got it just in time, just the signature. So I'd like to present this to the City of Nampa and the Mayor, if I may come forward.
Representative Scott, you know that Representative Crane is in the back, right?
Yeah, he's hobbling around back
Okay.
there. I don't know if we can get him to come up and get his copy or
Well,
not.
I think if he's a bulldog, he should be able to crouch up there.
Yeah, yeah. And then if Chief Joe Huff would come up, or any of the officers I mentioned, if you would come up here as well.
Jared, what'd you do to your knee? Oh, no. Oh, yes.
These folks, I like to see her down.
Take one first like that.
I'm coming.
You'd probably break a hip.
Oh, get in there.
No, no, no,
Oh, my
I'm
word.
good.
Okay. Here we go. Ready? One. Oh, here we
Yeah,
go.
Amy, just take it to the front there, please.
Did you catch it?
Have you ever heard of golf before?
Let's see. Whose is this? That's Joe.
Okay, so the next item on the agenda are, I think we have a police staff communication. Kurt Schenkel.
Mayor, council, good evening. So just kind of wanted to give you guys an update between the Nampa Police Department and the Nampa School District. For those of you that may not know, we have a contract with the school district for our school resource officers. And as such, we just finished up a 3-year contract that ended this most current school year. So we sat down, we met with the district, and I have to say, I think we probably have one of the best relationships with the district we have ever had. They are extremely supportive of us. We're extremely supportive of them as well, and things work out really well right now. So with that, we met and we have set a 1-year contract. The reason we did 1 year, several reasons, but one of those reasons is so that hopefully next year we're able to forecast a little bit on personnel and where we're at. So currently there are 10 SROs in the Nampa School District, and that includes supervisor as well. And they cover approximately 25 schools and over 15,000 students. And then there's the staff and everybody else involved that gets added in there as well. So they have a big job, a lot of responsibility to try and keep those facilities and the students and staff safe. With this contract, we did increase the annual rate by about 6%, that increased. And the overtime rate, when they ask the SROs or other Nampa officers to cover events after hours, that overtime rate went up about $20 an hour. So we did see some increases there. And with that, we are adding 1 SRO mid-year. So that will give 11 SROs for the Nampa School District. They would like more. We would like to provide more, but at our current staffing levels, there's just no bodies to move into that area. So that is something we're hoping that next year we'll be able to have a little time planning and forecast what that looks like over the next few years so we can maybe incrementally add an SRO from time to time. So, and with that, it's different than Nampa, we do have our contract with Valley View as well, just so you guys are aware. We have one SRO under that contract that covers 3 schools. So, do you have any questions, Mayor or Council?
Mayor, if I may, so is this going to allow 5 days a week rather than just 4 at some of the schools?
Right, so Councilman Brunner, Mayor, this.
I know, that was a concern at one of the middle schools where
It is.
Friday there was no coverage.
Right.
So, okay.
So it won't change the coverage. They still work their 4 days a week. They do half Monday, half Friday, and then they cover. What they have done, the SROs have worked with the administrators so that to allow better coverage. Schools that are in close proximity, those SROs will float between campuses to help give a little better coverage than what they have had.
So it would be tough to predict when there's not going to be an SRO at a school.
Correct.
From a safety standpoint.
Correct, yes, sir.
Thanks.
Mayor Kling.
Yes.
Kurt, you said increased by 6%. What are you referring to?
So the annual rate that they provide back to the city of Nampa went up to $425,000.
So that's plus the increase.
That's with the
Oh,
increase.
okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Are there any other questions? Okay. Kurt, thank you so
Okay.
much. Thank you for all you do.
All right, thank you,
Appreciate
Mayor,
it.
Council.
And thank you to the other team members that I see out here from PD. Thank you for all you guys do. So, Public Works staff communication. Okay.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. I am giving you an update on the Group F, our wastewater treatment plant expansion project that's underway. And we are about 50% done with construction and 65% build. We are ahead of schedule, which is good news. The original budget had a lump sum item that obviously hasn't changed in the contract. The portion which we negotiated along the way was about $3 million over our anticipated total budget. We received a Title 16 grant for $3 million, and so we're about even with the project. $183 million project. That's pretty amazing to date. So I'll stand for any questions. This is our monthly update. Quarterly, we give you a little bit more of an extensive update, but if you have any questions or that I can answer, I'd be happy to do so.
Are there any questions? I don't see any.
Okay,
Jeff,
thank
thank
you.
you for your work. I appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, that concludes our staff communication. We have 3 business items that I want to get through before we step into public hearings, and we'll start with 7.1 on the agenda. And Shar, are you going to bring this item forward
Madam Mayor, I do not have a presentation, but I am available for any questions.
for any questions? Okay. So 7.1 is an action item, and this is to consider a request by, how do you say that? Victor.
Aguilera.
Thank you. Restaurant. Yes, would you like to say it one more time?
Aguilera Restaurant.
Okay, thank you. It's located at 324 11th Avenue North, and this is to add liquor by the drink to their existing alcohol license, which is currently for on-premise beer and wine. As the council knows, that many times these are just on the consent agenda as new licenses, but this is put on as new business just because it's adding liquor by the drink to their existing on-premise beer and wine.
Mayor,
So, yes.
I just have one question. And it was brought up to me earlier today about this. So this is going to be, well, he's been in business forever. But he also has a food truck. So I don't know if he sells alcohol out of the food truck. Do you know that?
I have no idea, but I would let probably our clerk Shar Tim talk about transference of the license, because this particular license is for the restaurant, not for the food truck, correct? And it would be a separate license for the food truck.
Okay, that's what I want.
So they would be 2 separate licenses. Am I correct on that?
Okay,
okay.
thank you. I'm okay with that.
Okay?
Mayor, are we asking questions to?
Yes.
Okay. May I ask what their main reason is? Is this to be able to serve stronger cocktails, or or margaritas, or have we been given any? I think I've been pretty consistent, the one person that questions family restaurants, and because with beer and wine, you can still serve cocktails. And as long as it's under 16%, alcohol by volume, which you can make margaritas under 16%. And tequilas, margaritas, I'm not saying anything wrong with people wanting a margarita, but they are a hard cocktail. One of the hardest cocktails, depending on how much tequila is in there. So from what I've read is two standard tequilas are pretty much, unless you're a very, big person, you're going to be over the limit from an alcohol content if you attempt to drive. So I guess that's kind of my concern is that what the reason was, if they've been doing beer and wine for so many years, why they would want to upgrade this to an alcohol license.
So, Madam Mayor, Councilmember Brunner, they did not provide a letter, of why they were adding it. They just came in and put an application in. I do want to let you know that they have already received the state and county approval in June. But yes, they did not provide us a letter of explanation.
Okay. And since you can serve cocktails even with a beer and wine license, as long as it's under that 16%, I will be consistent with my vote, but I'm voting against it. It's not, but the restaurant is wonderful, so I want to make sure there's a understanding there in the business.
I do have a quick question. Have there been any points assessed to this establishment?
Madam Mayor, there have not.
There have not been. Okay, thank you. What is the will of the council?
Mayor Kling,
Yes.
I'm going to approve the request for a Galilia restaurant located at 324 11th Avenue North to add liquor. Buy the drink to existing alcohol license.
I'd second that.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Yes.
So this is a full restaurant? I'm not familiar with the restaurant itself. So they sell lunch and dinner, full meals?
Yes. I've been in there. They're a 15-hour-a-day restaurant.
Work hard.
Yeah, they work hard.
So do they have a separate bar from the dining area?
I don't know that. I think you order alcohol with your drink, with your food.
And bring it to the table? So there isn't a bar that people are sitting at then?
I don't think so. I could be wrong, but I don't think so. It's not big enough to do that. Pretty small.
Are there any other questions or discussion? See none, roll call.
Brunner,
No.
Chingula,
Yes.
Haverfield,
Yes.
Reynolds,
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
4 in favor, 1 opposed, motion carries.
Item 7.2 on the agenda is an action item. This is to allocate the 2023 Community Development Block Grant funding for administration planning, public service, and non-public service activities as presented. Matt, thank you for coming forward.
Good evening, Mayor Kling and council. It's good to see you as always. Yes, we are here for you today to the suggested allocation of funding for the 2023 program year, which would be the 2024 fiscal year CDBG allocation. I'm just going to kind of summarize some of the high points of the actual memo. The memo had quite a bit more detail in there, but we'll just hit the highlights for the sake of the presentation today. Just as a quick reminder, the CDBG funding comes from the Department of Housing and Urban Development. We've had the benefit of having both CDBG and CDBG CARES Act funding that can be allocated out to both public service and non-public service. So right now, and in this upcoming program year, we will have still both available because HUD did allow for an extension for us to continue using the CARES Act through the remaining 2.5 years of the original 6-year allocation. So the subrecipients that still had CARES Act money will continue to be able to use that moving forward. So that will play a bit of a role in some of this allocation recommendations. And also just a reminder, We have a regulatory cap on spending for administration and in planning is 20% of the allocation, the annual allocation, and our public service cap is at 15%. We typically just fund the remainder to non-public service activities. This is just a kind of a high-level overview. Right now, this current calendar year or fiscal year coming up, we have the 2023 program year allocation of $697,771. That's what we received from HUD that we will be able to start using in fiscal year 24. We had quite a bit of prior program years funding available to commit. So we had 522, 368.21, and we had estimated 5,324 in program income from loan repayments that we anticipate we'll receive next year. All that combined is 1.2 million and some change. And if you'll see down on the slide there, our admin and planning and our public service, we intentionally fund 1% under the regulatory cap to make sure that we just never run afoul of those two things. And then, so we've funded them both at 19 and 14% respectively, and then the remainder went into the non-public service activities.
Matt, I have a quick question for
Yeah.
you. Can you remind me what our total available, what the allocation was last year compared to this year?
It was, I want to say it was I think it was 699.
So pretty
So
similar.
it was pretty similar. Yeah, I think we're starting to stabilize a little bit. I think there was a time where we had more entitlements coming on. We had Twin Falls come on, we had others, and then funding remains level coming down from HUD, and so it's just spread out over more entitlements, so we just end up with a lower proportionate sort of share of the available grant funding.
Okay. And I have one other question. Is there a reason why the administrative and planning percentage is higher than the public service activity funding?
I'm not sure why HUD does that. Truthfully, I think that we could, that's something we plan to write every year to our elected officials and just ask for that cap to be raised. I'm not sure why they put a cap on one of the things that gets the most penetration into the community. We could fund more activities if we had more funding, but with the cap that low, it starts to get to where if we fund too many things, the dollar amount we can give them becomes less meaningful and can't quite cover the things they needed. So it would be nice to have that cap more at 20%, similar to admin, or even higher for that matter, or at least allow us the discretion to do that with maybe HUD approval if we had a significant need. But so we'll write every year and let them know the things we think that wouldn't cost the government any more money, but it would allow us more flexibility in how to run our program.
If you would reach out to Rick Hogeboom in my office, and I'd like to, actually he stepped away, but I would like to support that request with our congressional delegation. So thank you.
You betcha. So this year in the public service, that's the great segue. We had 6 applicants this year. We had Ketchikan Canyon County Family Justice Center, Jesse Tree, Nampa Senior Center, St. Alphonsus Meals on Wheels, who came tonight in support of their activity, and then Salvation Army. You guys, I'm sure, quite familiar with it. We've funded all these in the past. As I mentioned before, we will have CARES Act funding still available to Catch and Jesse Tree in this upcoming fiscal year. And so we've actually, because they would have the same level or more than they requested, we went ahead and pulled them out, and so they wouldn't have dual funds. It'd be easier for us to make sure there wasn't a duplication of benefit, things that HUD is paying attention to. So we've pulled them out of the applicants available for funding and plan on giving them or keeping the CARES Act funding with them. And so this year, our funding recommendation came down to the Nampa Family Justice Center, Salvation Army Rapid Rehousing Program, and then St. Alphonsus Meals on Wheels. So we have those 3 funded at 97, which was roughly around the 14%. And Catch, Catch should still have about 100,000 left at the beginning of the fiscal year, we anticipate, and then Jesse Tree should have about 40, so above what they could have got with the regular allocation.
Thank you for sharing that, because they do great work.
Yeah.
So thank you, that's wonderful.
We have the benefit of having really good public service organizations in our community. They've all been really very easy to work with and all get a lot of work done with the money we give them. So. That is what our funding recommendation was for the public service. Our non-public service, of course, includes the community development staff-run programs, which is the home repair loan program, And then the Healthy Homes, which is a kind of a hybrid of the Brush Up Nampa, but we're going to be more lead focused, which is a little more HUD compliant. And then we're working with some community members to try to make Brush Up more of a community-led event like it used to be, and less of a city-led. And so we'll work with some local businesses and leaders that have talked about helping us start a committee to help run that. But for now, the Healthy Homes is what we're asking for to help us paint homes in the Nampa community that have lead-based paint, with a focus on homes with children that are under 5 or 5 and under, that are at the most at risk of having lead-based paint issues. So those are the two that we've put forward for the staff-run activities. Public facilities have asked for a couple activities this year, which is West Park ADA access improvements. So we're going to basically be making ADA improvements to facilities around various parks throughout the city. And then the 5th Street ped ramp improvements, which are also ADA focused. And then the facility and park improvements, which included West Park as well, which was a full-on bathroom replacement. It's been in need for a while because that, if I recall correctly, all the softball games I played there, I couldn't, at my prime, I could barely move the door. So I think it's been long overdue. I'm glad they're moving forward to that, and hopefully that will be funded this year. And then they're going to also make some additional ADA improvements around various parks around the city. And then we will have a little bit of a remainder from the total allocation that we've left in that pool. It's only $39,000, but in that allocation, you'll see that's a little kind of a carved out line item. That's just in case any of these other things run a little over budget. We just left a little padding in that pool of funds for the ADA improvements in case those could end up being a little bit more than we anticipated.
Mayor, may I interrupt and just ask on those? So I didn't quite understand. There was a budget of $485,000. Then the recommended for the west restroom replacement is $195K. Help me with what the budget allotment was for $485,000.
I'm going to skip to the next slide so I can see what you're looking at. $485,000 are you looking at the overall
West
long?
Park bathroom. I didn't.
They had a larger budget that I'm only paying for a portion of.
What's that?
You are right.
What are you finding?
So as he said, he's only paying for a portion of it. The full cost of the bathroom is higher. Yeah, it's a,
Okay, so the restroom is, we are going to do it for $485,000 or $195,000?
I'm only contributing $195.
So who Public Works is taking care of the rest of it?
The remainder, I think they're also, I don't know if they had any other grant opportunities, but I think they were.
So we are, I guess, and I'm not.
it could be in our capital budget.
Okay, and I'm not a contractor. I'm just questioning a bathroom for almost $500,000.
I think that includes, and
I mean, that's quite, and these aren't marble toilets.
I should have double checked. I believe that's including, because right now my understanding is that is on a septic system, and they're abandoning that septic and they're tying into city sewer. So I think they're also running city sewer.
So Brian, do you know, can you help me with that one?
And Patrick is here.
Oh,
raising his
Patrick's here
hand.
also?
So
Okay.
whichever one would like to address it, thank you.
I'm just, I know we just replaced a bathroom at our home and it was expensive, but this is, this is.
Mayor and Councilmember Brunner, that is a replacement, and as Matt indicated, there's a failing septic system there that's really, really old that will be replaced. It'll be fully tied into city water and city sewer. So that bears a lot of the cost because it's pretty far off the street. So there's quite a bit of trenching and piping to take over this. That adds a lot to the cost.
I take it you agree that this whole restroom needs to be replaced. I see the others, we were just making them ADA compliant with raising sinks and so on, but.
Yes, there's a number of these that we can do minor improvements in and bring them into better ADA compliance. This particular location is really at end of life, and with the condition of the septic system and everything.
Okay, and I know it's a busy park. I'm not questioning it, but I just needed some explanation on the cost.
Mayor,
Yes.
a couple of quick questions. 5th Street, is that 5th Street North or 5th Street South?
Oh, I apologize. I think it's north. Yeah, I think it's in. I believe it's north. I can get that for you tonight. And
I was just wondering if we're targeting North Nampa, not just South Nampa, with West Park improvements. I would assume other parks that you're talking about, the improvements that are being made, are needed improvements. They're needed on the north side as well.
Yeah, we're working on some of those now. We've done a lot of those playgrounds already. They didn't have any bathroom facilities or anything like that. That is more what this funding's focused on is more toilet and restroom facilities. That most of North Nampa parks, we've already replaced the playground equipment, and this summer we're doing the basketball courts and
have you-
sidewalks to get to the playground.
Okay, have you reached out at all to LB Foster? They develop restroom facilities and send them throughout the United States and internationally, here right out of Nampa.
I believe this is something where it's a place
I believe that's
put in
what it
place.
is.
Right,
Restroom, yeah, I believe it's that style where it's,
so out of Nampa.
I'm not sure who they've contracted through. Apologize.
Yes, my understanding is that is the business here in Nampa. that they've
LB
been working
Foster?
with.
Okay. Because obviously they're meant to be there for 100, 200 years. I mean, they're very durable.
Yeah, that's been a direction that we've been trying to take the parks into, is putting more of these pre-manufactured units in there that hold up much better time, and are
Okay.
fully code compliant.
Great, and if you can find out if that's Fifth Avenue or Fifth Street South or North, that'd be great.
Mayor, one more question, and I think that's my last one. So on the, I have a strong passion, I think some of the other council do too, as far as ADA on the sidewalks. So we're doing Fifth Street with 13th, 14th, and 15th Avenue. And that's wonderful. How much are we going to have left as far as, taking care of our ramps and sidewalks for ADA compliance?
Right now, this is basically all of the funding that's currently available to commit. So HUD likes me to allocate everything that's out there that's available to me to spend to make sure we try to stay timely. So we've allocated everything we have available right now is in this plan. I think as we were working through last year and I think part of 2021, we started looking at our 504 plan. It's like our ADA accessibility plan. And we were looking at facilities and buildings that maybe weren't up to date. And so I think we intentionally decided this year to try to focus on getting some of those things that we haven't been focusing on for a while. And so we've made more of a diligent focus to say, let's get these other places up to date. And then we'll always try to carve out something for sidewalks and ADA ramps, especially in the areas that highly traffic.
So,
This year it was just focused
are we
on-
25% there, or where, just a rough estimate, where are
On
we?
the overall plan and things that need improvement, that we have quite a list. They just sort of, I think, have targeted the highest, the locations that had what they, I think, deemed the highest
Highest
use,
need.
highest need
And use.
and activity level around those sites. And so those were just some really low hanging fruit, I think, that they focused on this year that we already knew about. And so I think they're going to be getting a plan here soon. I don't want to speak to.
We will I think we need to bring the plan before city council and then talk about the funding options and how we're going to fund them, but we
Yeah.
do need to get it done. And I appreciate your questions. So we'll have that as a future meeting that we can come back and just talk about the city, the ADA, what
Yeah.
percentage is done, what it's going to cost to get the top priorities done and how we're going to fund
And
it.
I think, Mayor, it's kind of old news, it's been about a year ago, but some of us did take wheelchairs, which I'm not very coordinated anyway, but in a wheelchair and try to get around Nampa. It was not an easy process,
Yep.
so.
And I anticipate with this plan, as we we'll utilize that plan as our sort of our path forward, and we'll work with public facilities and we'll work with Public Works to try to identify the highest needs. And I'm sure that will come to you before all that comes.
Appreciate the funding that you're doing,
Yeah,
thanks, ma'am.
specifically, this is the CDBG funding, which is we can only do certain projects with it. So we'll come back. Okay.
I just was wondering that $500,000 restroom if could be moved over.
Matt, I have something for you, so don't take off.
It is south, he said.
It is south. It is following our asset management zone, so it's not that we're ignoring the north side, it's that in our rotation of what zones we are targeting, we're in one of the zones that's on the south side this year.
Thank you.
Thank you. Natalie?
Yeah, so we just got done talking about how we didn't understand why the public service was capped at the 15%, but this proposal has us underfunding that at 14%. So I would like to see us raise that 1% and fund the public service, so maybe take from that surplus of the 39.9 that's there.
I'm
And-
okay with it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's fine. And I
I'll
mean, we
just
just
make them
heard
sharpen
from,
their pencils, right? And if we get it right to 15%, if we make a mistake somehow in the process, we just always want to be careful not to overbill. It's something if that ever did happen, we would just have them pay it back and it'd all work out. But we've just sort of always, since I started, that's how the program was run, to build in a cushion to keep us from becoming in trouble with that rule. But if you guys have the will of the council, I'm happy to fund it at the full 15. That 1% would give us another $7,000 divide amongst the three.
$7,655.65.
Yes.
So we just heard from Tanya. That she said that they're serving 170 meals per day, which is 62,050 per year. And that seemed to be almost kind of double, if I understood her correctly, from what they were doing the previous year. So I think that they could probably use the additional 7,600.
They've also been using St. Alphonsus staff to deliver the meals because they had to cut back on how many volunteers they were using. So their need has increased, as well as the actual number of meals they've been providing. So they've really stepped up to make sure the program stayed moving forward. But I'm more than happy to do that. That's a very easy adjustment for me. So if I can pull the money from that surplus and apply that to the full 15%, and I'll just spread it evenly across the three, unless you're saying specifically to go with one. Is that what you're saying, to go all of it to Meals on Wheels?
I mean, I think that it's really, I guess, up to council on what we decide. I mean, I think that would be a good use of funds. I know that it's something that's needed in the community, and our elderly citizens it's important that they have this service, and I think that it is well suited there, but I would let the rest of the council speak to that, but that would be my recommendation.
Okay.
And cut back on Clint's driving time too, so that'd be good.
I love Meals on Wheels and the work being done, but I have a quick question. The Nampa Senior Center was in there, but we didn't fund them. What was their funding request for?
They were looking for some staff time. I think the goal was to free up. Right now, they rely heavily on donations, like the donations people make to go eat there, which I'll now start making more of a point to have a lunch or two there. But their application, the applications are scored and reviewed. We have it in our application guidelines, a scoring review form that tells them how it'll be scored. And it just didn't meet the minimum standard of a score based on all of the reviews that came in. That was their first year, and it was a really fast turnaround for them. They asked to apply, and they only had about 5 days. So we've already made a plan to work with them. I'm going to provide them some examples of what a really good application looks like, of course, with all the things redacted that need to be. And then we'll start with them sooner next year to give them more time to put it in, and I'll have them probably give me some of the information they want to put into the plan so that I can give them feedback while they're writing it to help them better understand what it means to get federal funding and the requirements that are put upon it. So we have a plan in place to try to help them improve their application, which will help them with their score and hopefully get them through the application round.
And I think they currently receive some federal funding for their meals. I know that they're running tight is what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
And so they're raising the cost of their meals. So they've gone from 5 to 6, and then the special meals, I think, are now 7.
Yeah.
So, Victor?
Yeah, it's pretty tough right now for them.
Yeah.
They're applying for other grants. Hopefully they get them, but if not, not sure what they're going to do.
Yeah, I think when I reviewed, they definitely rely heavily on the suggested donations for the lunches. So, but again, we'll work with them. But I guess it has a minimum requirement that needs to be met for the application. So we'll work with them to get there for next year.
Okay, any other questions? We'll go ahead and let you keep going, and then we'll get to the end.
And lastly, we've always carved out a little bit for housing affordability, which can be helping with land acquisition for something that would be developing affordable housing, or it could be down payment assistance for single-family homeownership. We've been talking with a provider that could provide down payment assistance for us. We don't think internally we could take that on and run it ourselves just with Hannah and I. So we've looked at partnering with a gentleman that does that right now for Meridian. And so we'll see if that works out. If it does, then we'll come back to you guys to see if that's something you'd like us to put some of that money to help people with their first down payment on their first home or whatever, second, third home, I guess it doesn't matter, but down payment assistance for low income housing. I guess I'm to the action item. If you have any questions about the funding, I guess at this point, I can pull up this is the total spreadsheet here.
Matt, I do have a question before you go there.
Yeah.
And this is for you and for Doug. Is there any ARPA funds that we can circulate or transfer to the senior center?
Well, Counselor, Mayor, Counselor, we have designated the use of ARPA funds primarily to the public works section. They got the lion's share of it. There was a certain amount of money was available to use for other departments. To a certain extent, some of that could be reallocated, but we've already committed it. We've committed probably 99% of the spend, so there might be a very tiny amount that we could move. It would be minor, but that would be probably a discussion I need to bring with the mayor and go through with the available funds, which really aren't that much. It might be maybe $100,000 of the money left that could be redirected.
And then the question, I think I'd like to restate it, we've got CDBG care funds that were available, that were CARES funds. And so the question is, are any of those funds available?
It would, I guess, depend. We can look at that. Yeah, we will. We do have some money available. I think the intent was to come back to you and apply some of that funding to Jesse Tree to continue the rent assistance for households that were going to be evicted.
Mm-hmm.
But we can look at if you want to carve some of that out to try to supplement that. We'll look at and see what. So with the CARES Act money, what we in the end have to do is show that we've met the prepare, respond to coronavirus. So what we would need is they call it like a tie back to that mandate. And so I would just work with my HUD rep to see how they would want us to structure that tie back. And then if that's the case, we can come back before you, maybe at a special council meeting, just to discuss it out and see what you'd like to do, and then come back
Mayor?
and allocate.
That would be great, because I think that's really what you're thinking is the CARES Act funds versus the ARPA dollars.
Quick question for Matt.
Yes.
Matt, most of the ARPA funds, or not ARPA, but CARES funds, separate from ARPA, around the state have been used or terminated by time.
Mm-hmm.
What time frame is yours operating around?
HUD had this last year, HUD had applied sort of a clawback date of July, I think it was the end of July.
Okay.
And then they just recently, so the National Community Development Association sort of lobbied, and they were able to get HUD to agree to take that back and allow us to continue to use those funds for the remainder of the grant agreement, which is normally a 6-year funding agreement. So at this point, I anticipate we should be out of funding. I really want to be out of that funding in this next fiscal year. It's just easier for us but we should have enough time to get that out the door.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, so what's the next step then?
I will start working with HUD to figure out what our tieback would be if we wanted to fund something like the senior center.
Okay.
And specifically what we're going to look at trying to provide there. Normally, they'd want to see that with the CARES Act kind of money, they'd want to see that we're providing some kind of separation or sterilization, like PPE supplies, or in this case.
So on this, because we're running really late on time and this is a separate agenda item, let's
can
follow
work
up on
together.
that. We
Yep.
need to go ahead and wrap this up because of, we're already 30 minutes into our public hearing timeframe. So I think we're down to the action, correct?
Yes, and it sounds to me that the action item would be,
If you could just redisplay it, we'll take care of
you
it.
bet.
So this is an action item, and it's to allocate the 2023 Community Development Block Grant funding as presented, and the motion is there.
Mayor, I'll go ahead and make the motion as I stated.
Well,
So
let's
you
be
wanna-
clear,
you
you're
wanna
going to
add the
allocate it.
remaining 1%?
The additional 1% going to Meals on Wheels.
Okay, so we want to fund the remaining, anything above what's currently on this, to Meals on Wheels, capped at the 15% regulatory cap.
Correct.
Yes.
I got it.
And this is the funding as presented in the packet for the administrative planning, public service, and non-public service activities as presented. That's the full action item with the addition of
Okay.
what you just stated.
Yep.
Thank you. And it's seconded. So it's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion on this? Seeing none, roll call.
Rodriguez,
Yes.
Brunner,
Yes.
Reynolds,
Yes.
Haverfield,
Yes.
Jingula.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
Thank you all.
Matt, thank you.
Matt.
As much as I would like to get to these other items, we're 25 minutes into our public hearing, so we are going to go ahead and move into the public hearing. And we're going to start with item 8.1 on the agenda. This is an action item. This is annexation and zoning to RS6 at 002306-2414-2418 East Locust Lane. This is a subdivision, also a subdivision preliminary plat for Stoddard Crossing subdivision for Patrick Connor with Providence Properties representing Sawtooth Land Acquisition. Is the applicant here? Bye, guys. Thank you so much. Good evening. Hi,
Good evening,
Patrick.
Mayor, council members. Thank you for having me tonight. Before I jump into the presentation, I just want to congratulate you again on your money wallet identity of your best run city of America. I think it really is more than just an algebra problem, at least from my perspective. And I wanted to talk about this before, but the staff that you all have is excellent, and it's top class in the Valley. Of the 7 cities that we work with, Daniel Badger, Caleb, Parker, Christy, Rodney, I'm sure there's others that we work with, but and it's not just me saying it, it's other folks in the industry, in the development industry, that we love working with NAMPA. They're very efficient, they're very responsive, they're tough when they need to be. I just wanted to say it all comes down to leadership, so I also want to thank you for your leadership, Mayor.
you.
I don't think any of these awards are by a fluke. I think it's real, and everyone knows it. So
Thank you for those comments, because staff needs to hear that, because we hear the negative. It's wonderful to hear the positive, so thank you so much.
you're welcome. I mean
Thank
it.
you.
Thank you again. My name is Patrick Connor. My address is 701 South Allen Street in Meridian. Tonight, I'm presenting an exciting project called Stoddard Crossing. I'm really excited to present this project to you all tonight. It received approval or recommendation approval from City Council or from Planning and Zoning, and I'm asking for 2 things tonight: annexation of about 25 acres into the city limits of RS6 zone, and approval of preliminary plat, 92 single-family lots, 15 common lots, and just over 15% of open space. So the location of this project is in South Nampa. It's surrounded by city limits to the north and to the east side of the project. And this shows a little bit more clear from above where it is exactly. So it's just west of Southside Boulevard on the north side of East Locust Lane. There are city services just to the east, and the sewer service will come from the north. There's a lot of schools immediately around the project, as well as built-out subdivisions and new subdivisions, Lava Springs and Lava Falls directly to the east, which I'm sure you're familiar with. It's also a really great pathway network, where I'll get more into that kind of meander through the city into Wilson Springs Ponds. There's commercial opportunities to the west of the site. So it's pretty well located, and it's pretty well, by my definition, of an infill project in the city of Nampa. This is your future land use map. It is designated as medium density residential. And here's your current zoning map with RS6 to the north and to the east. And we are proposing RS6 zone for this particular project. Whenever we started initially exploring this project, one thing we looked at was building a community for everyone. So we wanted to build a certain housing product that may appeal to a broad spectrum of buyers, whether it's new first-time home buyers, small families, larger families, growing families, or move-down buyers. These are all things that we took into account when we were designing this project, and the land plan I'll show you next kind of reflect that. I just spent the weekend with my in-laws exploring this area and the Sawtooths, and they're from Florida, and by the end of the trip and this morning, they took off back to the East Coast this morning, but they were talking about wanting to move to Idaho, and but they didn't want to live in one of those old folks communities with active adults. They wanted to live in a place with a lot of different people and families and be close to kids and things like that. So I think there's a large market for kind of a diverse group of people that live in that same community. So Stoddard Crossing, I think, allows for that. The lot sizes, the largest lots are shown on the west side of the property, which are 75 feet wide, greater than 10,000 square feet. And other large lots are on the north and on the east side, and then 50-foot lots and 60-foot lots kind of make up the general middle of the property. We fall under the density allowance, as well as we have larger lots than what the minimum of lot size is. We are requesting a waiver for the lots along the west side, and I'll get into that, to have these lots be larger than what the city allows for. One of the big kind of things that came out of our neighborhood meeting was to have a bit better transition between our current neighbors to our west. And so the maximum that we can be is about 10,000 feet, and our average square feet, or our largest square footage lot on that side is about 11,497 square feet. So we're asking for a waiver to allow some larger lots there. It allows them to be 75 feet wide, which we can have either larger side yards or more estate style homes there. And this kind of shows a little bit clearer. Again, the map is orientated a different direction, but our current neighbors have about a 40-foot private driveway between our property boundary and their property boundary, but we are proposing those larger lots adjacent to them as kind of a transition between the current county homes and our homes. This shows our amenities and open space. We have about 3/4 of an acre of what I call parkway pathways. So that's pathways that aren't just adjacent to curb, but they're buffered, whether with street buffer and through parkways. We have 2 connection points to the Stoddard Trail, which is a city trail that runs through the city. It's an awesome trail. You go there in the middle of the day, and there are people all over that trail. It's really cool to see. I spent a whole afternoon out there kind of hanging out, and it was really neat to see all the people on bikes and kids and old folks and young folks and everyone from the spectrum of the city to see out there. So we also have a playground planned on the north side, and then 2 kind of play fields on the north and the west side of the property. One feedback we always get from our subdivisions is they want more spaces to walk and to recreate, and I think we're providing that here, a place to play soccer or throw the ball or teach a kid to ride a bike. That's kind of what we're trying to do here. And again, we do provide those 2 connection points to the Stoddard pathway. And there's a little shot of the ribbon cutting from last year of kind of an extension on the north side of that. And the bottom right, this is a shameless plug, but on Father's Day, my son learned how to ride a 2-wheel bike. So I took a picture of him and put him on there. So hopefully it can be used for things like that. Again, the Stoddard pathway is a really great amenity. It connects it to the Partridge pathway and then to the Wilson pathway and the Wilson Ponds, which is a beautiful place if you haven't been there. Again, that's another place where a lot of people kind of hang out and fish, and this will have a direct pedestrian connection to that, which is neat for it to be kind of plugged in already into the community. This shows some of the home plans that we have for our 50-foot wide lots, and those are kind of the ones that are generally located in the middle of the project. Those 3 home plans in the middle are kind of our new modern elevations that are very, very popular, that a lot of people are choosing today. And this is our home plans for the 60-foot wide lots, which takes up about 1/3 of the lots. And then those large lots along the west side could be sized as shown. We do offer a new RV option, RV garage bay for parking a boat or a RV or any toys that folks in Idaho have. That's something that a lot of people are optioning up for. So we wanted to provide that here. This project was before this council about 1.5 years ago. It was denied. There's a number of reasons why it was denied. I listed some of those issues there on the left. So initially there wasn't much of a transition between the current neighbors and this community. There also wasn't even a neighborhood meeting that was conducted, so there was really no coordination that happened. There's also some concerns about blasting and rock blasting that could potentially hurt their wells, and then the property is generally just too dense. So as far as upgrades or how we've kind of responded to that, we have upgraded the size of those lots adjacent to our neighbors. I did hold a neighborhood meeting. I've met with neighbors on site, lots of phone calls, personal meetings, trying to hear all their feedback as best I can. I think some folks are here tonight potentially to talk about some of that feedback. There's a shared well that we are going to deed to a neighbor. Construction fencing was an issue, and that is a condition of approval that P&Z added to the project in order to kind of lessen the impact of development to our neighbors, as well as If there is any need for any sort of rock blasting, there'd be notification made to the neighbors. I'll get into that a little bit more. And no access of their private street for this particular project. So there'll be signage and there'll be more than enough information shared at our pre-construction meeting, making sure that contractors do not use their private street for access to this particular property. And again, like I said before, our proposed density R6 zone is on the low side. This shows just some modifications that we made after the neighborhood meeting. So we adjusted that entry street to give more of a buffer to our neighbors that are directly adjacent to us. It will be sodded and landscaped. We're making some improvements to the irrigation system. We've met with Carolyn King on site for a few hours. My engineer was with me on that time, and we talked about how the gravity irrigation kind of works for her property and make sure it's going to work and make sure that we pay attention to her needs, and telling her kind of how we are starting to preliminary design the engineering to make sure that the properties adjacent do receive their irrigation water. Lastly, there's a lot of discussion at P&Z and last year about the rock blasting. There is some rock out there. Most of the rock is greater than 4 feet deep below the finished grade. And so if there's any sort of trenching that we need to do, we would use a machine sort of like this. It's a rock saw or a reel trencher. If in times we do need to do any sort of breaking of the rock for infiltration, there's kind of small scale blasting that we've done throughout the valley, and any sort of notification of blasting would be done to the neighbors. And they're very good, they're very precise, and there's little to no worry from our perspective of damaging of wells. This kind of shows where that rock is in relation to the street grade. So the brown lines show where the rock is underground, and then the top line shows the finished grade of the street. So there's plenty of space there to work with. I just wanted to show that. Lastly, there are 3 new conditions on there that P&Z placed as a condition, and we are completely fine with these conditions. One being silt fence prior to horizontal construction, and then the vinyl fence being in a final plat.
Madam Mayor, time.
No construction, and that we would install the pathway in the lateral. So that concludes my presentation. I stand for any questions, and know we'll have some discussions, but thank you.
Patrick, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Council, do you have any questions? Yes, Randy.
Just one. It appears that your emergency access is off of the cul-de-sac. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Thank you. That be gated?
Yes. Councilman Howard, it will be gated and bollarded off. It is kind of the only place we can have our secondary emergency access. Correct. Also along East Locust Lane, there's a 10-foot pedestrian pathway that will kind of cross along East Locust where we have frontage there.
So internally, there seems to be at least a stub for a future access to the east. Is that property that is going to be acquired? Do you know anything about the development of that?
So tell me,
Right.
yes, exactly. Currently that's not for sale, and we're not in control of that particular piece of property. We did have that stub there as recommended by the engineering department.
That's where I was going to ask next. Who recommended it?
The engineering department recommended that. Yeah.
Thank you.
It's not clearly shown on this particular map, but that does line up with lava falls further east of the site. It's a continuation of that east-west local street.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any other questions? Okay. You know the process, so we'll have you back. Thank you. Parker.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Parker Bodley, Planning and Zoning Department. The action requested from you tonight is annexation and zoning, as well as a subdivision preliminary plat here. 92 homes, 15 common lots. The island subdivision to the north, that's city zoned RS6. The rest is county subdivisions. The Stoddard pathway to the east. Sorry. As far as the history here, this came to City Council in June 2021. And that was just zoning, just straight zoning, no plat, and that was denied. And December of '21 came forward again with a plat, this time annexation and zoning in the Locust Grove subdivision, and that was also denied. In April, Planning and Zoning Commission voted to recommend approval, added some conditions as the applicant had stated, and he covered those conditions, as well as the conditions that staff is recommending. As far as utilities and traffic, I'll let Daniel present some of those details after I go through my presentation here. The one code to highlight, the applicant mentioned that the maximum lot size along the county sub, 10,800. We do allow a 20% exceedance along for lot compatibility between existing subdivisions. So with the 20%, the maximum is then 10,800. So they're an exceedance of even the 20% allowance. So they're asking for a waiver of that requirement to get even larger lot sizes adjacent to the county subdivision. There's some code compliance, waste, debris, weeds. Those would be taken care of with development. Parks is requesting a 10-foot side path along East Locust Lane to be built out. The fire department, Fire Station 2 is 6 minutes from this development. Again, I'll let Daniel address the engineering comments, but there's comments on right-of-way dedication, traffic analysis, all of those common topics. As far as the surrounding land uses, it's predominantly county. They're largely built out already, so that would give this subdivision an enclave feel, as those county subs are unlikely to annex unless hell freezes over. But the nearby city subdivisions, Lava Springs, Lava Falls, are also zoned RS6. I put those densities on there. Lava Springs is 2.3. That's a PUD. There's also a school in there. It gives it a smaller density. There's a large amount of open space. Lava Falls is not that way, 11.6 dwelling units an acre. The future land use designation here, medium density. The comp plan mentions, highlights our need for housing. It's in the public interest to provide a variety of housing types. The schools, Skyview High School, 2.9 miles, South Middle School is 1.7, and Greenhurst Elementary is 2. So those are all outside of the walking range for safe routes to school. Regarding the plat, this is just over 25 acres. There are 15 open space lots. 2 of those are being used as drainage, and 1 would contain their play structure, and the other one's containing mostly pathways. Proposed density is 6.18. They're above the minimum. Again, they exceed the maximum. They're asking for a waiver to that requirement. As far as the open space, they're providing 17%. Originally, the proposal did not include a pathway along the Partridge lateral on the north side. Staff recommended that they reach out to the irrigation district and talk to them about the possibility of adding that pathway, so that they could get above the 15% requirement. So with that pathway added, we can count that as part of their qualified open space and get above that requirement. There's a code section that requires that qualified open space contain larger recreation elements that are centralized. The play structure is on the northern side of the development. It's still less than a quarter mile from the furthest lot to the south. And there's a number of qualified open space lots that are spread across the development. Here's an overlay that we can refer back to with public comments. Again, the applicant mentioned the previous plat, and here's a side-by-side comparison. Some changes to the road layout, some changes to lot sizes. Again, we can refer back to this. So I covered largely the staff findings, and these are in the staff report as well, the staff recommended findings. So the conditions of approval are also in the staff report. There's a few at the end that were recommended by the Planning and Zoning Commission, as well as the last one that they provide the pathway along the Partridge lateral to make sure we get the 15% open space requirement. There's a potential motion. I'll defer to Daniel unless you have any questions for me specifically.
Thank you, Parker.
Mayor, Council, this development with its 92 lots does not trigger the need for a traffic impact study. And so what we have had them do is do a turn lane analysis warrant. Looking at that, the number of vehicle trips there and the vehicle trips on Locust do not trigger the need, a database need for a turn lane at that entrance. We have, as Parker mentioned, we did require the stub street there. You can see the number of accesses, street accesses out to the roadway that are there currently is in a higher count than we would like to see under an ideal situation. And so those stub streets are put in there so that when those larger open areas do develop at some point in the near or distant future, that they are able to take access through there and not need to plug another street out onto Locust and create additional traffic conflict points on the roadway there. And with that, I'd stand for any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Daniel. Council, do you have any questions for Daniel at this time? I'm not seeing any, Daniel. Thank you. Parker and Daniel, thank you so much. So this is a public hearing, and let's see, do we have some signed up?
Madam Mayor, we do have some individuals that are advanced sign up, and our first person is Dave Allen.
So Dave, as you come forward, and I'll tell this to everyone, so as you guys come forward, please state your name and address, and you will have 3 minutes to state your thoughts. Thank you for being here this evening.
Well, my name's Dave Allen, and it's 1712 East Iowa. I'm the idiot that sold that land that's causing all those problems. But Carolyn King couldn't make it today because she had an emergency that just came up. But basically what we're talking about is the drainage. The land on the south side of the road, plus Carolyn and plus Tammy, my daughter, will drain. It goes through the Wheeler subdivision. I don't know what they call that. And it goes out through the bottom of the subdivision right there, which I haven't seen any drainage plan for that. And they do have water come out. I pulled the tile out before I sold it. I didn't know I was going to sell it. And there's a big hole there, and I did fill it full of water. So I do know that. Carolyn King's water drains both north and south. The south drains into the subdivision, and she hasn't had, well, I guess nobody's ever come out and really looked at the subdivision where the drainage is. Never talked to us. The other thing that I had, I talked to the engineer on this, but my thing is you gotta say 100 homes in there. You got cars. Most families at least have 1.5 cars. So you're looking at 120 cars trying to come out one way. You don't have no turn lane. I'm just glad that my daughter lives there and I don't. But my end thing is just strictly the drainage so that people don't complain. Oh, and I had one more. They're going to put a pump in down here. And the pump right now is up a lot higher up. And then it's open ditch. It runs through gated pipe. Okay, they're going to pipe that all the way through there. Are they going to, I went to the Nampa Meridian Irrigation Company, and they said that the subdivision was supposed to maintain that, where it's underground, for if you have it plugged or something like that. And I'd like to see that in writing. If we got to do it, I'd like to see her have a easement through there behind the property so I can get a backhoe in there to repair it. And I know that they do plug up with roots because Ron King, Carolyn's husband, has passed away. Him and I, 5 years ago, replaced about 1,000 feet of pipe across the street. And the only thing was wrong with it, when we tore it out, we found out it was one spot
Madam Mayor,
had a lot of roots in it. And that's it.
Thank you so much. And you may or may not be aware, at the end, our applicant gets to come back. So Patrick will have you address the drainage issues, maintaining the pipes. So thank you, Mr. Allen.
Madam Mayor, our next speaker is Tammy Allen.
Since he covered most of it, Tammy Allen, 2404 East Locust Lane. I'm the little sliver right in the middle of all this mess, right? And it keeps being brought up over and over, density. Planning and zoning, everybody up here says it was too dense with only one in and out, but yet they approved it. Last time you guys shot it down because of density, but yet they've added 2 houses to their too dense. It started out at 90 homes, you guys said too dense, they took it up to 92 homes. You know, they made the exterior larger lots, but then they crammed all these little houses in the middle, but they still got to come out the same entrance no matter how you look at it. They still have cars, they're still coming out one entrance. And he's covered the irrigation because if they pipe it, you know, plug up with sagebrush or anything, or tumbleweeds, I can't get it out. What else? Is that it? I think that's it. What? Is that it? I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Tammy. Appreciate your comments. Thank you so much.
Madam Mayor, our next speaker is Carol Nelson.
Carol Nelson, 3607 Shane Street, Napa, Idaho. Thank you for having us be able to address this. Density keeps getting brought up, and I'm going to bring it up again. Like I say, when we were at planning and zoning, most of them on there said it's too dense. They wouldn't want to live in there because of the one entrance and exit. One of the concerns I have is that the emergency exit is one house away from our exit, and the emergency exit on Lava Falls was chained. The chain is now gone, and they're using it. What provisions are being made so that that does not happen to Chicago, which is the emergency exit on that one? So I'd like that addressed, because they just hook. Those chains just hook in, people take them out. Let's see, I have several. There's just so many entrances and exits on Locust. I talked about, there's like one house and there's another exit. One house, you know, might be 2 or 3 houses and another exit. That's a real concern to us of being able to get out, and yet they're saying we don't qualify for a traffic study. Is that because Locust is a county road and not city, or why don't we qualify? They've added, like this will be the 3rd subdivision in just 1 mile. So maybe they look at each individual subdivision and not the overall, but I think there needs to be a traffic study done. Fire stations. I know that Napa City is behind in the building of their fire stations for the amount of people that they have currently. And that Napa, South Napa, where we're at, is one of the worst response times because it's a larger area. Each of our fire stations only has one fire truck. And they take those fire trucks with them when they do a slip and fall or whatever, because they have to have the trucks with them in case they get a fire call in order to make the appropriate time frames. That is a waste of an expensive truck, in my opinion. And so I think that that really needs to be addressed and looked into. Why are we taking the fire trucks on these little slip and falls all the time? But I would like to see the building slow down a little bit and let the emergency people be able to keep up with what's needed currently. The other thing is, with that dense of population in the middle, if a house catches fire, there's going to be more than one house that goes up, and we're right there. We would really like to make sure that the developer covers the correct kind of insurance, that if there is any damage to our wells or to our basements, that is covered, and I know that not all the insurance covers that, so we'd like to make sure that that takes place. And then lastly, on our Shane Street, the irrigation canal slopes that water back onto our street. We want to make sure it slopes off, and that's
Madam Mayor,
addressed.
time.
And thank you.
Thank you very much.
Madam Mayor, I do want to make note that we did have Carolyn King signed up, and she was opposed to it, but according to Mr. Allen, she has left. After that, oh.
Good.
Would you like to?
You're welcome to come forward. Thank you for restating your name and address.
My name is Carolyn King, and I live at 2518 East Locust Lane, Nampa. My horse is sick, and I didn't think I'd be able to make it, but I came. And I am addressing the irrigation as well. And I did meet with Patrick and the developer, and we had a good meeting, but I'm still very uncomfortable about them burying the lateral line, because he told me that the pipe only is guaranteed 15 years. I've been there 53 years. I know I'm not going to last another 53, but my kids don't plan on selling. And I still have land to irrigate. They will have land to irrigate. And unless that total lateral is a greenway, I'm against burying that line, because for the reasons that Dave stated, they do get corroded with silt and roots. And an example of right across the road from me, their lateral came through private property. People immediately plant trees and bushes and things and fences, and then don't allow access to the property owner to get in there and clean the ditch. They refuse to clean the ditch. He can no longer get water. He has a dry lot now because he can't irrigate. And I don't want to see that happen to me, and I'm last on the line. And that's exactly what would happen. And the developer will be gone. The subdivision is going to be responsible to repair this line. I'd like that in writing also. And that is my main concern, and the density. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Madam Mayor, we do not have anyone else signed up for this.
Is there anyone here that did not get signed up that had intended to testify this evening? Yes. Go ahead and come forward and state your name and address.
Thank you for listening to me. My name is Susan Wyatt. I live at 2112 Patrice Drive in the Shannon Circle subdivision. I'm not going to take up your time just repeating everything everyone else has said, but I do want to clarify again the density issue of having one entrance and exit into that subdivision with a school literally across the street and kids coming and going onto that Stoddard pathway, which is a wonderful pathway. I use it a lot myself. It's a hard thing, and I just feel with not just bicycles and cars, but motorcycles and RVs and all the other things that people drive, it already at rush hour times. It can be difficult to turn in and out onto Locust Lane. I would please, please, please do some type of traffic study. I know we may not meet, dot the i's and cross the t's for qualifying, but in the best interest of the health and safety of the people that live there, I would urge you to please do that. Again, the irrigation issue, I fully support that as well. Again, thank you so much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that had intended to testify this evening that did not have the opportunity? Yes, go ahead and come forward.
My name is Dalton Skelton, and I live at 2422 East Locust Lane, which is the southeast corner. I'm against this project due to Hubble Homes negotiating in bad faith regarding our shared residential well and the amount of homes in the area. For approximately 2 years, we have been battling the prior developer who purchased this land and now Hubble Homes. Our main concern is that we share a well with the property Hubble has purchased. This well, that resides on the property line. For months now, we've been trying to negotiate with Hubble via our attorney. I want to credit Mr. O'Connor for making efforts to remain amicable, but Hubble will not simply hand over their share of the well. And they keep trying to infringe upon our 20 by 20 foot easement that has been in place since '94. Hubble has strung us along and have yet to sign an agreement. Trying to come to an agreement has cost us thousands of dollars in attorney's fees, and not to mention a lot of time and stress. Aside from the well, the previous developer tried to place 90 homes on the land. Both planning and zoning and city council has required the developer to decrease the number of homes and increase lot sizes because our neighborhood consists of approximately quarter-acre lots or larger. We'd like to request the same reduction be made. We ask the council to not approve this project until developers resolve all matters with established neighbors. This project is currently not in the best interest of the community or neighborhood if it's not coming at such a cost for those of us who reside in the area. Hubble Homes should be held accountable for resolving issues that they created when they entered into an established neighborhood and started demolishing homes and land. Otherwise, what kind of precedent is being set? This council has been sympathetic to our situation previously, and I ask that you continue to help us stand up to developers who are just seeking profits, and we just simply want to protect our livelihood. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else this evening that had intended to testify? Okay. Seeing none, this is an opportunity for the applicant, Patrick Connor, to come back and address the various issues. And I've taken some notes here, and so if you don't cover them, I'll ask you some questions.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll just kind of go down the list as the folks that came up. So Dave Allen, who spoke on Carolyn King's behalf, and Carolyn King. So we did meet on site. It was a good meeting. So I think there's a little misunderstanding as far as the life for the PVC, the buried PVC pipe. She said it was 15 years. It's 50 years, not 15. So I don't know. I probably muddled or something, didn't convey that correctly, but it's the life of the PVC for buried pipe, which is pretty standard across the valley, is 50 years. And maybe my engineer can speak more on that if needed. So I don't know if I can point to this, but the irrigation, the current irrigation is located kind of about 2/5 of the way up the side of Shane Street. It's a very old kind of antiquated system, and we are trying to relocate it still along the same line, but pressurize it so that it is updated and renewed and functions better, and then it will run within HOA property, down on the south side of Locust Lane, up Chicago Street, through a common lot of HOA, and then it does run through one side yard on its way to Miss Carolyn King's property, and it'd be located inside a PUE easement that's prescribed by the final plat. And so all of that property is either by the HOA or it's within a PUE easement. So the buried pipe will go there. This is something that we're very comfortable dealing with. We do it across the valley as there's irrigation everywhere across the valley, and you're dealing with kind of moving water around, making sure you deliver the rights there. It's also our obligation to deal with all the surface water on the properties. So she's talking about, or he was talking about how it drains north and south, which we observed on site, and which we're engineering, designing to deal with that water, particularly on the north side. On the south side, it gets a little trickier because it does run down Locust Lane, but I believe my engineer has a plan for that, if you can talk more about that. But it continues to run in front of the Shannon Circle subdivision as well, and there's some other wastewater that runs in there. So it's something that if and when we do start construction out there, we will meet with the adjacent property owners, figure out how the water is moving, where it needs to be served, what our plan is to continue to deliver the water, as it's our obligation to do that, and make sure that it not only functions better now, but for years and years in the future. So just talk about the irrigation there. There's also some talk about the traffic. So Tammy Allen brought it up, and Cheryl Nelson brought it up as well, as about the two densities. So we did do a turn lane analysis previously. We didn't warrant a TIS study because it's 100 lots or more. Typically, if we did do a TIS analysis, nothing really new would come from it. Probably the first line of intervention for a TIS is going to be that turn lane. And then after that, you get into more kind of, does it affect downstream intersections and things like that? So the TIS, if we did conduct it, there won't be anything new from it. The kind of the first step that you do with the TIS is, are there turn lanes required? Is there additional width that's required? So that's why we conducted that particular study. And it came out as it did. As far as the bollards that extend to Locust Lane, it's surprising to hear that happened in, I think, a different subdivision, maybe Lava Springs or something like that. In my experience of subdivision work, over a decade of it, I've never heard of someone breaking through a bollard or driving through the emergency access. That's pretty well supervised. It's designed to not break if there's vehicle folks coming through and they can't just unhook it. It's designed for emergency personnel only to go through. So sometimes we do have metal gates or anything like that, or chain bollards, but that's never been a concern in any subdivision that we've built or work through. We do have a letter from the fire department. I know she said that there's no way that the fire department can serve this. The letter is in your packet. It's a 2-page letter written in April of 2023 stating that they can and will serve this property. Again, there's a request for the insurance for the wells. So if we do need to use any sort of blasting for the rock, which, as I stated before, we don't anticipate to be an issue, but I don't ever want to say never, but maybe there may be an issue for some infiltration that's needed for the infiltration ponds. The blasting company that we use is called Superior Blasting, and they do notify neighbors, and they do have, I think it's a $10 million insurance policy if there's any sort of issue there. One example I have is in Southern Ridge, just a few miles down the street, we did have an infiltration pond that wasn't functioning well, and we had to come in after the fact and break up the basalt below the ground. And there was finished homes completely surrounded this one pond area, and it went off without a hitch. There's no damage done to the homes or any sort of pipes or anything like that. So that's just one example of something that, with all the homes directly around it, they're able to do that in a very tight location.
Patrick, so I'm just going to say real quickly, we do have a timeline for closing comments. However, he is answering the questions that need to be answered. And so I'll interject just to say, Patrick, I'd like you to continue, because I think it's important in this process for the citizens to hear the answers that you're providing. So thank you for doing so. And I do have, the shared well is another one. I'm sure you're getting there. So I'll let you continue to answer all the questions.
Yes, the shared well, it's actually surprising. So We have been working with the Skeltons for the past few months on this shared well agreement. So just factually, the issue is that there was a former residence there that shared a well with the Skeltons' property. That residence was demolished and removed from the property, but the well is still in place. We have no need for the well. We don't want the well. We want to give the well to the Skeltons. So we initially started having conversations after our neighborhood meeting about how to deal with this. They came to us with these concerns. We said, absolutely, we would love to work with you to give you this well. Again, we don't need a reason for it. They hired an attorney to negotiate on their behalf, which was fine. But as we all know, it can get a little bit long and a little bit complicated, and it became to the point where they wanted a little bit more of an easement than they really needed, and we were trying to work with them on it, and we kind of reached a conclusion up until about 2 weeks ago, and we had agreement on that well, at which point I think their attorney was I don't know, let go or something like that. Their attorney sent us a letter that said they're no longer representing this client. So I reached out to Dalton personally and said, hey, we're in agreement with this agreement, of the well agreement that was in place. Just so you know, we cannot sign this well agreement until we have assurance from the city that this project could be moving forward, because we couldn't just relinquish rights to a well for whatever reason this project is denied. We don't want to be left without that, which I thought was a pretty normal request. That's how it was portrayed from the very beginning to their attorney. Clearly it wasn't relayed to them. I think we can, there still is a shared well agreement in place. Again, we don't have a need for it. I think we can work within the confines of that agreement to make sure that they have their well. We met them on site. We had a well assessment done to make sure we understood how the well was currently functioning. So they understood their baseline. So if we did anything that messed up the well, backed into it, if there was any sort of like construction done that damaged the well, we would 100% be responsible for replacing it. It's just dealing with that old shared well agreement and how we kind of move forward with it. So the initial proposal that we did about the well was just relinquishing our rights to that well and then fencing around the well, giving a 5-foot easement around it. And if they needed to get in there and do any sort of work on the well, they would have rights to a 20-foot easement to do any sort of construction on that. We still have the kind of bones in place for that agreement. I'm happy to meet with Mr. Dalton. I couldn't really negotiate with him because they had counsel directly, but I think his statement tonight made it very clear that they want to make sure that it's clear, and hopefully we can continue talking. And I maybe potentially as a council, it can maybe be a condition of approval that the shared well agreement is negotiated appropriately. I don't know how you want to word it. Basically, we are relinquishing our rights of this shared well to the Skelton family or to that property. Particularly, maybe that could be a way that it could be written. And I'm open to other wordings of that, or talking more about kind of exactly what they need. The way that we initially had the new agreement written was in a case where they needed to have construction access to that well, we would grant them a 20-foot temporary construction easement within that area, and then they would be responsible for returning any sort of landscaping or fencing back to the original status there. So up for discussion. Again, was a little surprised by some of the words that were said about, not being trustworthy or whatever. I don't really know exactly what was said, but didn't really rub me the right way. But we're trying to get them what they need, make sure their family has what they have, and make sure that it works for them. Be a good neighbor. So I think that answers some of the comments that were said. If there's anything else I didn't touch on, please let me know.
So one of the things that you had addressed the pipe in the 15 years versus a 50-year pipe. However, I'm not sure what can be put in place where a pipe actually does become clogged and it isn't servicing the water that needs to be done. And so I know that some of the people suggested it stay open because then you can clean a ditch. But once it's in underground pipe, they're really at the mercy of others, right, if it gets clogged. Is there a solution to that? What is the solution? I don't know what it is.
Yes, Madam Mayor, I think
Maybe
that-
Daniel's wanting to comment too.
Yeah, potentially Daniel and maybe my engineer too. Again, with us improving the system, we will have a screen there, so there'll be less debris entering the PVC. And there's cleanouts along the way. I believe at every junction point, potentially there's a cleanout. I don't know if you can expand on that, but it will not have the same level of debris. I mean, right now, I mean, it looks just like standing water. There's like animals in there and who knows what, and it's just going straight into their system. With it being a closed system, it keeps a lot of that out. I know having an open ditch is easier to clean, but you also have less debris if it's a closed ditch. I don't know, Dan, do you have something to add to that? Or Daniel?
I'll let one of the engineers answer that question, whoever would like to.
Mayor, so typically on these closed pipe systems, he is correct, it is a cleaner system. There's less debris introduced into that. The tree root issue, that is something that we come across. There are companies that we utilize when we have those issues, that they can come in and they can, without having to dig it up, they can go in and cut the roots out and take care of that. We will, in the design, Dan from Levitz will design it such that there are access points at each location that are needed. We will review that and verify that if the project is approved with the construction drawings to make sure that there's access at each point, so that even if there were a problem in one of those common areas or elsewhere, likely they would just be able to access right at the edge of that, use the equipment to clean those lines, cut out any roots that are necessary, without actually having to dig that up or take any issue there.
Okay. Daniel, while you're standing there, if we could just talk about the turn lane. I think it's a valid question. How individual developments, and council, I'm sorry I'm asking questions. I hope you don't mind. I just started with my questions. So where we're looking at a single subdivision and they don't quite meet that. But then you have another subdivision, doesn't quite meet that. But it's the accumulated aggregate of all of them together, then we have a challenge. So can you speak to how we can avoid that when we've got other points of entrance? And then while you're at it, I'm going to say Stoddard Pathway, it appears it goes across Locust Lane.
It does.
So is there or will there be a flashing beacon there?
There will, long-term, yes, there will be. That's not one that I don't believe we have that on the radar right now for installation, but long-term, I would expect that as that road, right now it's just a 2-lane facility. As that road widens and does that, we would anticipate that it would go from what it is today to an RFB, and then longer term in the future, when it's a 5-lane facility, potentially a Hawk, depending on the traffic levels and that. As for the turn lane analysis, we do those turn lane analysis specific to this development, and it's a function of the volume of traffic there on Locust Lane and the anticipated volume of traffic in the development. As we look at the full corridor and the overall effects of each development, when we have developments that are large enough that come in and trigger a full traffic study, they are required to look at any approved projects that are not built yet and add that traffic into the existing background traffic. That being said, as we go through and update our transportation master plan, that's where we end up capturing the more global, okay, as we grow, these are kind of the growth rates we anticipate, and so we're looking at those improvements out there from a larger perspective in our transportation master plans. And that was just updated back in 2019. We're typically on an every 5-year or so rotation for the transportation master plan, and that sets our priorities for the city and for the impact fees that we collect from these individual developments to determine what is needed based on those as they come in and are built.
Is there any opportunity, I know Lava Springs is already built out, but I'm just thinking about shared costs and some of the improvements that need to be done. For example, The rapid flashing beacon is a safety issue for those using the Stoddard pathway. And when there's a school right there, that becomes a safety issue. And my thought is it should become a priority that we get one on that road because of the increased traffic that is happening there. The other thing that happens when there is a beacon and there's a stop, it provides a stop to all traffic, which sometimes provides an opportunity for people to get out, right? Because the traffic flow slows. So I would just be curious about, I don't know how much the beacons are today. They're not.
Mayor, I would say about $400,000 to procure, design, and install.
That would be for a Hawk.
Oh, for a Hawk.
Right.
Okay.
For an RFB. 150? 150,000?
Okay.
Depending on what improvements are necessary, whether there's existing power, lighting, all of those different things
Okay.
go into that. One that all it needs is the RFB and there's existing lighting, and that would likely be, less than that, but that would not be the case out at this location.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Council, do you have any questions for Daniel while he's here?
Well, Mayor, Patrick was doing his closing,
Yes, yes.
so are we talking to staff at the same time we're allowing him to finish what he had to say?
Well, as actually, he was done, so I was asking questions.
Okay, so he
So-
can sit down, we can talk to Daniel then?
Okay. Patrick, did you feel like you got to wrap? Because I did ask you some questions.
I would like to say one thing. One thing that I think we could do is for future planning of that flashing pedestrian signal, we could extend power or at least a pathway or run a raceway to that location of the crosswalk. There is a crosswalk there, and they have those flags that you can take out. Again, I spent half a day out there in the middle from 8 a.m. to noon and crossed that street a bunch of times and felt generally pretty safe. But as time goes forward and as their kids go to school and stuff like that, it'd be wise to have. But that's something I think we could provide, and that could be helpful as if we're out there and we have the crews, we could provide that power connection. So whenever the city has the funds to spend the 120 or whatever it is, it's really just the facilities for there. They'll have the power that could be connected to the street light system or something like that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate that.
I think that was it. Thank you. Are there any other questions?
I don't think I have any questions. Do we have any other questions for Patrick? No. Thank you, Patrick. Appreciate it. And then we may have Patrick come back based on the questions that we're asking of Daniel if needed. Thank you.
Question.
Yes.
So Daniel, earlier I asked you about the Stubb Street to the east out of the development, and it extends to property that's basically in the county still, undeveloped. My question is why that Stubb Street is going to the east and possibly not to the west to Shane Street. Is that a public or a private street?
Shane Street is a private street. In the previous application, it was the desire of the engineering division that Access Duke did come out to Shane. The property owners there were very adamant that they did not want that, and as it's a private street, we have no mechanism to require that. That would have been certainly our preference would have been to potentially see Shane go away and it connect out into the development and come through there and get a better spacing on that, the number of streets in there. But because it is private, we don't have any authority to enforce that.
It just appears problematic that Wheeler Drive or Circle or whatever it is comes out to Locust Lane, Nay Drive comes out to Locust Lane, and Shane does as well.
I would agree with that.
From
That
a
is
planning
problematic.
standpoint, it makes sense that we would have had a Stubb Street in alignment with Patrice onto Shane out, and then you would have the two access points shared roadway, as far as cost of maintenance on it, something to that effect. But if that's not the desire of the rural subdivision, who's already voiced a concern about only one access point into this development, it seems like it would be a logical way to maybe move forward. But if that's not the desire their desire. Obviously, like you say, you can't force that. So my question then is, again, the one access point for 92 lots, there is the relief as far as off the cul-de-sac for emergency access, but still there's quite a bit of generated traffic to that one point. It would be nice if there was a second, but the fact that there's already 3 to the west within near proximity to that property line, it makes it really difficult to add a second. So I just wanted to make that point.
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you, Randy. Council, do you have any other questions for Daniel?
No, Mayor, just, not a question, I guess if there's a solution to this, so any possibility without Shane of having another access?
No. Honestly, the only other way that I envision that ultimately happening would be if the properties between Lava Falls and this one were to develop. At some point, that roadway could come through there across the Stoddard Path and allow for some interconnection of those developments.
So to go
but it would be long.
across the Stoddard Path?
It would be a local roadway crossing of the pathway, which would not be of concern for, we have those in other locations without any incident.
And we cannot, that's county, so we are not able to do that due to that fact, or the developer cannot participate in that?
No, those are existing county properties under private ownership, and so we stub planning for that to happen in the future.
Right, I
I've
understand
sat
that.
and seen many people say, I'll die before this happens, and either they die and it happens, or they change their mind and sell to somebody else and it happens. So it may be long time in the future, but long-term, we would anticipate to see those develop and that be interconnected at some
I'm
point.
going to put you on the spot, Daniel. Do you see it, I mean, you said there was recommendations that you would have made if the private lane, of course, would have been able to be accessed. Do you think 92 houses would one access? I mean, does that make any sense from an engineering standpoint?
I would say that with the configuration of ground that is there and the existing roadway network that is already there, this is really the only alternative.
That's not what I asked you.
Well, so I would say that based on the turn lane analysis and my experience, I do not have significant concerns that this would cause a traffic congestion issue with that point of connection.
Okay. I mean, I have a lot of faith in you and whatever, just from me looking from the outside and not knowing, seems like a lot of cars going one way. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Daniel. Okay. So if there are no further questions for the applicant or responses from the applicant, I would stand for a motion. Do you guys have any questions for the applicant? Okay,
Mayor?
I'd stand, yes?
Just one follow-up for Patrick. I assume that there's a homeowners association that will be developed, CC&Rs for this development, correct?
Councilman Harfield, yes, there will be.
So the emergency access only, the gate that would be installed there would have a Knox box on it, so that only the fire department could access through that gate?
Maybe Daniel can clarify on that. I don't know if it's gonna be a Knox box. That's usually for like a commercial use, but for residential, I think it's maybe a little bit different.
Thank you. Ron Johnson with Nampa
Thank
Fire
you.
will come answer that question. Ron, if you would like to also address the question, there was the access, the time to this location. You did have, there was a letter in here. If you'd like to speak to any of that, feel free to.
Sure. Madam Mayor, Councilman Haverfield, sorry.
I lost
the
you
word
too.
commissioner was stuck in my head because I have a commissioner meeting coming up. So.
Or king.
Sorry about that. So, on that access, there's a couple of things we can do. One is bollards that would be
accessible only by the fire department as far as having a lock on it that we'd have
What is your
access to.
preference? Is a gate with one lock preferable to multiple bollards?
Yeah. The thing I like about the gate with one lock is usually that makes it easy to use the Knox lock, so we know we have the key
Right.
with us, and we can just get it opened up and get through there. The other thing with the gate is, you know, as long as it keeps out cars, they can make it look aesthetically pleasing. It doesn't have to be chain link or anything, so they can be creative there. As far as the other items go, our access or our response time to this is approximately 6 minutes. That includes our dispatch time because we're 2 miles from Station 2, which is just outside of our ideal, but 2 miles is still pretty reasonable for our response time. We do have better response times out in this area than obviously the Southwest, but that'll be solved here in August with Station 6 opening. So, any other fire access questions? No?
No, thank you. Thank you. Okay, if there are no other questions, I would stand for a motion to close public hearing.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
This is an opportunity for council discussion. If there's any discussion that needs to be had and/or a motion. Councilman Haverfield.
Mayor, I like transitional housing where there's larger lot sizes that work across the property. They're more sympathetic and sensitive to outlying larger parcels. And then it allows small, families with younger kids, larger lots to be able to build and live on. And then potentially older entities like parents or grandparents living within the same development on a smaller property. I like that. I think so that's a sensitive development that I appreciate seeing. Quite often we see developers come in and just try to maximize the number of lots and they're not sensitive to the transitional zoning across it. So I like that. My concern about this development that I wish that there was a way to work with the neighbors to the west to allow access from the Stoddard Crossing development onto Shane Street, that they could mutually benefit by separating traffic. But again, if that's a hard, fast no, then obviously then our hands are a little bit tied as to what we can say and do. We've been told that there are no traffic studies required, and that's based upon, again, our staff looking at the best interest of this development, the city growth. So we have a staff recommendation of approval that's backed up by planning and zoning. So again, they've seemed to have met all the requirements. They've gone back after being denied and came back with a different development that, from my standpoint, makes more sense. It might be 2 more lots, but at least it's a better layout to me. So I don't have a concern about the approval of the project.
Okay. Is there any other discussion?
Mayor, if we just make a comment, I think it's greatly improved from what we saw last time. The density has not been taken care of, and without the density being taken care of, as far as I would say, at least 25% less density, I cannot vote for this.
Mayor, please.
Yes.
Some of the issues that we've heard over the past are the same issues here. I think it's a great opportunity for that area to grow, but I'm really having a difficult time with the infrastructure, the irrigation. Access is really a priority to me, and emergency access. The density and the traffic. I just look at this subdivision, but look all the ones around there. So it's not just this one, it's everybody else in that neighborhood. I wish that Shane Street would open up and make it better for us to make a good decision, but they won't, and I don't expect them to. So at this point, I'm sorry, but I just can't support this project.
So I have a question, and I'm not going to be liked real well on this, but when an applicant comes in and they follow our plan that we have put out there, and they also fall within the density requirements that we have already established, and they're aligned with the density next to them, RS6, RS6, I guess the question that comes to my mind is, what is a developer to do? That is a difficult one, because when someone purchases a piece of property, I mean, and I totally understand from the citizen standpoint not wanting the density. The reality is, in this area, it's an enclaved property. It will more than likely develop at some point. And I think there are a couple positive things. One is a developer that's been willing to talk to people. That's so important. And that we address the issues at hand. And so the question I have when we're talking about density, and it's not that I don't disagree, the concern about density and traffic. I really appreciate the offer to put electricity in for either, whether it be a flashing beacon or whatever, there at the Stoddard Pathway. I think that's wonderful, because that's something that we're going to need, and I think it's important for safety. But I guess the question, we've got a master plan, we've got a comprehensive plan in place that has identified this at the density that it is. So that's a question that I pose back to council. There's an element of reconciliation that needs to take place here, and that's with our plan. We either need to change our plan because we've approved a plan and we have it in place, which makes it difficult.
Well, Mayor, if I could answer that. This is common sense building, common sense projects that's going to be developed for our city. I think sooner or later it will be. But the thing is about it is, would I want to rent, or would I buy a home toward the back of this property knowing that I only have one access, enter and exit? Or if I have to use the emergency because there's fire, or there's an accident, or something that's blocking me to get out. That's a big factor with me. I would think that the developer would think about this and reduce the amount of the density and place another access point, work their diligence to do what they can for another street there. So I don't think it would be hard to do. Maybe I'm wrong, Mayor, but I'm just worried about it.
Yeah, I would have to have Daniel, because I don't believe they're allowed to add another access point in there.
Yeah, I know it's
So
a difficult spot, I know that.
Is that correct, Daniel? Yeah, according to our guidelines, they're not allowed to.
I know.
So that, it isn't that they're not willing, they're just not allowed to.
And Mayor, just let me add a little bit on that. I totally agree. It's got to be so challenging for a developer. The main thing is, when we have a master plan, we have a density that we allow. We don't always discuss every little bit as far as access points and as far as entrances and getting out, and from a safety standpoint. We're not aware of that when that density's happened. I would be totally okay with this if there was another access point. But since there's not, that's why I'm not approving of this kind of density. And I apologize to the developer. I mean, yeah, it's got to be very, very, very challenging. So, but there's always always things that enter in, and we're not, as master plan, whoever develops our master plan, and we approve those, we're not always aware of those things for each individual situation.
Okay. Any other discussion?
Mayor, I just want to say
Yes.
a couple things. As far as us putting out a plan for the developers to follow, you are correct. Like, what are they supposed to do? But I kind of look at it like it's a framework, and it's up to us to make sure that we put in conditions that make sense to protect the community and the neighbors that are surrounding that area. So it's kind of a double-sided thing. I do want to say that I do happen to live on a street that has one entrance. However, it only has 57 homes on it, but it is never an issue. It does have 35 less homes than this proposed property here, but it really is not a thing. So it's always very quiet. Traffic does not get backed up or anything. So I just want to put that out there. But as far as the conditions, I mean, we do have the ability to put in conditions, and then the developer can agree or not agree. So The thing that I'm struggling with the most is the turn lane, just because I know that this road is going to continue to boom over time. And that is, you know, we see it time and time again when we drive by subdivisions that are just butting up right next to new ones. And sure, I mean, maybe at the time it didn't require it, but that's what our job is, to make sure that we're looking ahead and making sure that we're putting in infrastructure that makes sense for growth. So I personally would like to see a turn lane put in there for me to want to approve this. So just my thoughts.
So Daniel, is it possible to have a requirement on the turn lane?
Mayor, Council, that certainly is at your discretion if you would like to condition a turn lane at the entrance as a condition of approval. That is certainly your right.
Is it physically even possible?
It may be challenging there with the amount of frontage they have, but is it possible? Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate you answering that question. Okay. Dale, any comments? Not meaning to put you on the spot, but I'm going to move to, at some point, we're going to need to move to a decision here.
I have the same concern about having no turn lane on a two-lane county road. I think it's a bad idea. I've seen some of the multifamily developments on Locust without them, and it's really challenging. You have traffic moving at a high rate of speed, even though they probably shouldn't be. And I think a turn lane is important. I was trying to find the picture of how that would lay out with the neighboring properties to have a turn lane in front of their driveway.
Parker, is it possible for you to give us a view of that? Daniel, is that the view? Okay. Daniel, thank you. I appreciate you maybe walking us through this.
So this dotted line right here would be the center line of the road into the subdivision. And so there is an existing 25-foot prescriptive right-of-way on each of these properties, so a total of 50 feet. So a turn lane will necessitate some improvements in front of the adjacent properties, but that would be within the existing prescriptive right-of-way. But people may feel like it's encroaching on their property. It would be only within the existing prescriptive right-of-way. And so likely that the left turn pocket would be coming from the eastbound traffic, turning in, and then you would have a blank space here because you would not need a left turn pocket coming out.
So would this turn lane just be like a middle lane that's available for people to ease into, right, as they're turning?
So typically, if we're doing this, a turn lane would provide a left turn pocket on the east or west of there for eastbound traffic to get out of the lane of travel to make their left-hand turn. We could look at, it would not be typical for a localized left turn lane to provide a receiving pocket on the other side. There would be a minimal transition there to allow the lane shift around the turn pocket to the east. We could look at potentially how that might look to provide a 1 or 2 car length buffer to come out here and go out, but without wider improvements along that entire area, that would likely not be something that would work well.
Okay. Thank you. Do you have a question? Any further questions for Daniel on a turn lane?
Yeah,
Okay.
that answers the question. Thanks, Daniel.
Who's responsible for the turn lane?
If the council puts a condition on the development would be required to put that in, and we would review and approve the plans for it with the final plat application.
Okay.
And Madam Mayor, I just had one other comment. And I don't know, it's just a comment. Is creating an enclave a bad idea for the city to have? We're creating a city annexed enclave, basically. I don't know, it might be 100 years before the rest of that gets annexed. I just wondered if that's a bad idea. But I guess if it's maintainable by our services, then it's not the worst thing in the world.
So Parker, is it what we're looking at here? Can you speak to what's in yellow is annexed into the city? Is that correct?
Correct, Mayor and city council members. Let me pull up a larger zoning map here. So you can see the city zone properties to the north and east. These subdivisions to the west and south are county subdivisions that are unlikely to annex in any near future. So they're already developed, they're not gonna redevelop. And in that sense, this is an enclave property. It's just developing land that's not being utilized to its full development potential.
Okay. Thank you for answering that question. Thank you. What is the will of the council? And it's quiet.
Well, I mean, we need to have a motion. I'm still that if we can get the conditions of approval for that turn lane, and I said 25%, if we get a turn lane, I'd like for at least to drop this density to 80 properties rather than 92 properties. So if we get a turn lane and other conditions of approval regarding the well situation and the clean out and so on, I will approve if we drop the density to 80 with the turn lane.
Okay.
Drop the density to what?
80 rather than 92.
And where did you come up with that number?
Out of the top of my head. I originally said 25%, which would have dropped it to 67.
Okay.
That's before the turn lane discussion. But my recall, as far as when we discussed this back last year, was density was a big thing why we did not approve it then.
Yeah.
And so I think there needs to be some accommodation for that factor. And P&Z, as my understanding, also was concerned with the density back then, even though they have approved it now.
So planning and zoning, so they approve this as with a recommendation to move forward, is that correct or not? Well, I don't know, remember right their comments, but.
Mayor, planning and zoning did recommend approval of the proposed plat. If the request is to come back with 80 lots, it would likely require a new subdivision plat with that much difference that we might as well just start over again.
Okay.
Somebody make a motion?
Randy?
Can leave it
I
up to
didn't make
me.
a motion. I just told her what I was going
You want me to help you make a motion?
You can if you want, sure. All this conditions of approval, I mean, I can make the motion as far as that we approve this with the understanding that the density would be reduced to 80 lots, which from Parker, it means that we would have to start this all over again. And so is there any need to go into the conditions of approval if it needs to be started all over again?
Mayor and council member, our concern with 80 lots is that it may not fit the zoning lots, the lot sizes for that zoning district. So that may require a different zoning district if they have to reduce it, which would, start from square one.
So tell me,
That's
what number would consist? How much can it be reduced, or do you have any idea?
Currently, right now, we're having to approve, the lots on the west side are larger than the
Right.
district even allows. So we're having to approve that to meet that zoning because
Right.
it's,
Which is
it
great.
doesn't even fit within our zoning. Yet it has to be approved because it doesn't fit. So it takes all of it together to fit within how we have it zoned.
Yeah.
This is what's difficult. Yep. Go ahead.
I just got a little sidebar with our attorney.
I think you're going to have to share that since
yeah,
it is a
I-
public hearing. And Todd, do you want to share the sidebar, please? Just as in that we shouldn't have a, you know how
No,
that goes.
I wanted to ask a question now that I would share with you,
Okay.
if that's all right.
And then I'll let Todd nod. Yes. I don't know, Todd, because you're our legal. How do we address that, if you
My
would?
question to our legal counsel was, can we limit the number of lots to 80 with an RS6 zoning, knowing that the developer would know that he could only develop 80 lots, and the balance of it, any lot sizes that would be, we're still not looking at increasing lot sizes. We would just create more open space as far as with the RS6 zone. So we could still approve the RS6 zone, put the limitation as far as on the number of lots, add the additional items to the conditions of approval, correct? And make a motion, and then it's up to the developer if he wants to move forward. At least we would have given him an answer as far as on the potential for this, as far as to get approval. Otherwise, we deny it and have them go back with kind of a directive, but at least this would be a step forward if they chose to go that direction.
Madam Mayor, I think Councilmember Haverfield described it. My response was, that sounds like it's possible, but I think it would be a good inquiry to staff since they raised the issue about whether that would work. But if it's a lot size issue, then in theory, you could add more open space. But I defer to staff as far as their response with the proposed RS6 and 80.
So I have a question. Rodney's not here this evening, so Parker, this leaves this to you. I'm almost tempted to say, could we postpone this decision until the next council meeting and allow there to be an opportunity to have some discussion around this issue? Because it really becomes an issue of what they're allowed to do, right? What they're coming forward, what we can do in an RS6, how much open space there is. And so we need to defer to that, and Rodney is not here this evening. I don't know, Parker, if you feel comfortable speaking to this.
Yeah, if that's the direction from the council, we can certainly do that. Really what it comes down to is if the issue is about the size of the lots, or is it about the number of lots? If it's about the number of lots, we can maintain the same lot size standard and just have more open space as you suggested. Whereas if it's the size of the lots, well, you would have to reassess the lot range size and maybe select a different zoning based on that.
And Mayor, if you're speaking, I think probably speaking directly to me, it's not the lot size, it's the number of lots. Okay, so density of number of people and cars.
Sure.
Okay.
So I guess a question that comes to my mind, the developer may say, you know what, that doesn't even pencil. Makes no sense, doesn't pencil, can't do it. Because there's a financial number here that just works or doesn't work. Is this the type of thing, and I would defer to legal, to where if we postpone a decision and have them come back, that they could actually have a discussion about what possibly could work? Because they would be reducing, not increasing. So within our public hearing process, could we defer the decision to a future date, certain, and then come back and let them work with staff and address this?
Madam Mayor, I think you could. In a sense, what you're doing is asking them a question. You've closed the record now, and I don't know if they'd be prepared to answer the question now if you reopen the record, but you could do it that way as well. So you could defer it with the opportunity for them to contemplate that and come back and answer the question.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yes, Councilman Haverfield.
Mayor, I appreciate your intuition on this. I just know from being on that side of that podium speaking to you, when you get a denial and then you have to file for reconsideration, the time delays, and then the headaches that are caused by that are difficult for the design team and for the developers. So I appreciate the idea of being able to postpone a decision rather than just trying to get something put forward tonight or denying it altogether. Because I think it has merit. I think it has,
I agree.
Good bones to it. I think it'd be perfect for me if they could work something out with the neighbors to the west to access that Shane Street, but that's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. But I think, like Natalie mentioned, 90 lots versus 50 or 60, it's not that much of a difference, but it would be ideal if we had some sort of a turn lane available. So that could be one of the conditions that we would add, along with the rapid flashing beacon for Stoddard and then the Knox box as far as on a gate, not a just chain across that emergency access. So I think the developer has some thoughts that he can maybe share back with staff, or he might just say, no, it's not going to pencil out.
So that would take a motion to, I guess I would stand for a motion to continue the public hearing, not the public hearing, but this action item, because we've already closed the public hearing,
So moved.
Second.
If I
to
might-
date certain. Council,
If I might clarify the record, you're continuing the matter.
The
But
matter.
there may be a need to reopen the record
Mhm.
if you want to ask the developer themselves the question. And you have that ability. If they simply talk to staff and say it doesn't pencil, then staff can report that and you can provide direction and do what you do.
So Mayor and Todd, I guess it'd be up to the developer. Can you reopen the record as of tonight? And they may not have a decision, but at least whether it would even consider such. I mean, realize that otherwise it's a design process and so on, so.
I think for the sake of time tonight, I think there are a lot of decisions that would be more than I would consider asking them to even address this quickly. I would just, and I appreciate the motion, and it has been seconded, that we just continue to date certain
Fine.
and address it then. They can have some conversations with staff and give consideration.
Mayor, if I might,
Yes.
one more. When you say continue to a date certain, are we talking about what date?
So, Shar?
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
our next meetings are July 5th, July 17th, August 7th, or August 21st.
So I guess the question would be, is July 5th too soon? Maybe we would go with is it July 17th or 20th is the Monday? Or is
It's
it?
17th.
17th
Yes.
is right, because it's our special council is the 20th. Okay, so it could be July 17th or it could be the August,
August 7th or
7th
August
date.
21st.
So I guess I would look to,
Mayor,
Staff?
the applicant has another item on July 17th, so he would be here regardless.
okay. Well, does that work to come back on July 17th? It does? Okay. Date certain of July 17th on
I'll
this
am-
particular matter, that
I'll
way.
amend my motion then to continue this until the city council meeting on July the 17th.
And I'll say yes, I
Okay.
agree.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Okay, roll call.
Brunner,
Yes.
Jingula.
Yes.
Reynolds.
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Haverfield.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so let's go ahead and move to action item 8.2. This is an action item. It's a variance of Nampa City Code 10-8-5, requiring a minimum RS6 single-family residential zoning district lot size of 6,000 square feet at 1405 East Amity Avenue. This is Jason Perkins. Is Jason Perkins here? Good evening. So Jason is our applicant. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor, council members. My request is to split 1405 into two buildable lots with
I'm
access
sorry.
through.
I'm sorry.
Excuse me. Could you state your name and address for the record, please?
Sorry. Jason Perkins, 5307 Mamre Lane.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Okay. There you go.
So my request is to split 1405 into two buildable lots with access through 1407 off of Amity. With me keeping one to live in and then building the other one to rent out. That's the request. when I purchased the property, the lot size to split in half was within the parameters. And then when I finally got a surveyor out there and submitted the request, you guys had bumped it in March, so that's the variance request.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Could we go back to the other picture? I'm not sure that thank you. Okay, so where is the access point here?
On the print, the left side of 1407, that is wide enough for the access easement.
Okay, and which property is yours?
1405, 1407, 1405 were bought together because they couldn't sell them separate.
I see.
So 1405, they're both owned by myself, but it'd be accessed through the 1407.
Okay. Perfect. Okay. Thank you.
All right,
So
thank you.
my guess is you're not used to being here, so I
No.
tell you, so the process is, just so you know, we appreciate hearing what you're wanting to do. Staff is going to come up and give us an overview of what you're wanting to do. Then we have a public hearing, and at the end of that, we're going to ask you to come back. And if we have any questions for you, or if you hear anything during public testimony, then you can answer that. I don't think there's anyone here to testify, so
They're all cleared out.
we'll have you come back.
Okay.
So thank you so much. Thank you, Parker.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. I'll try and make this as simple as possible, as it is pretty simple. This is RS6. What's being requested, when the applicant did a record of survey, our minimums, lot size requirement in RS6 was 4,800 square feet. In March, we changed that with our code change and brought the minimum up to 6,000. The proposed lot size that he had surveyed were 58, 57, and then 5,863, so just under 6,000. Now, it doesn't meet code now that we update our code for the minimum. With that in mind, our applicable regulations for variance, they need to, upon showing of a undue hardship, that being special characteristics of the site, it can't be in conflict with the public interest. The purpose of variance is to provide fair treatment, see that that individuals are not penalized because of site characteristics beyond their control. Financial benefit cannot be a valid reason, and then variances are issued for the lot, not the applicant. A couple things to note about the correspondence here. The major one being the fire turnaround for roads that exceed 150 feet in length. It needs to be dimensioned appropriately. The fire district supplied comments that gave some examples of turnarounds. This one that's proposed does not meet the standards for them, so they need to reassess the access to make sure it meets the turnaround dimensions. That's the major comment, really. The practical hardship present is that they completed their survey before the code change were in effect. They submitted afterwards. This isn't a typical situation, but there are situations where we've met with people and told them the code, told them to go ahead and get the survey done. And then they get the survey done, our codes change, and now it's not good anymore. So we essentially are allowing a grace period for some of those things. This one was already submitted, so a variance is the best route for them. The proposed lots for building would still need to meet all the RS zoning standards as far as setbacks, off-street parking, and paving. So there isn't really any other issues for that. The findings are all in the staff report, the conditions of approval as well. They would meet the fire turnaround. They would be required to pave their driveway, and then submit their record of survey with those changes for the turnaround and potential motion, and I'll stand for questions.
Mayor?
Thank you. Yes.
So Parker, in looking at there's a plat that shows parcel 1, parcel 2, and parcel 3. Is the access to the back two parcels, is that its own lot?
So, Mayor and Councilman, that is an easement.
Okay.
So, yeah, the issue with the turnaround is that this, the T part here is only 65 feet. It needs to be 75 feet to get the right dimension, so they're gonna have to bring that easement down a little further, so then they can get the right depth on that.
Right. So, so that easement is not taking away any of the lot area for parcel 2 and 3, okay. And then the radiuses of the T-turn, again, it's just, that's part of a road improvement. It doesn't have to be, is this platted this way with that easement, without any radius on the corners?
Mayor and Councilman, this is just the proposed record of survey. This has not been recorded yet. So when they develop those back two parcels, they're gonna have to pave the access up to Amity, and for the fire turnaround as well.
Okay. So it's not insurmountable, it's just, it's not practically, this isn't created properly at this point.
Correct, yeah.
But parcel 2 and parcel 3 are about the same size, but that's why I was wondering if that, that portion of the drive lane was an actual part of a platted lot, or if it's just an easement.
Just an easement.
Okay, thank you.
So with that, each one of these parcels meets the minimum square footage for the RS6, is that correct?
For our, Mayor, for our previous code, the minimum lot size was 4,800. In March, we changed it to 6,000. So now they're about 150 square feet short of that.
Okay.
So, Mayor, as a follow-up then, Parker, they could shift the lot lines. Parcel 3 could go north a little bit, and it could be 6,000 square feet. Parcel 2, same thing, it would just take a part of parcel 1's lot area, and it could be 6,000 because you got over 7,000 square feet in that first.
Mayor and Councilman, I had that discussion with the applicant, and they wanted to go down the variance route instead.
Oh, okay. Thanks.
We had him smiling over there.
Can understand that, okay. Thank you, Parker. So if there are no further questions right now for Parker, this is a public hearing, and?
Madam Mayor, we do not have anyone signed up.
Thank you. Is there anyone here that had intended to testify on this particular issue? Seeing no one, this is an opportunity for our applicant to come back and provide any closing comments or respond to any of the comments that you heard as we wrap up.
Thank you, Mayor, council members. I think it was just, like Parker said, he did discuss that with me. We could change it, but I was just trying to make them uniform and everything straight across. So that was the reason we went the variance way.
Okay, good. Council, do you have any questions for our applicant? None? Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
Appreciate it. I would stand for a motion to close public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
What is the will of the council?
Mayor, I have a question for Parker.
Mhm.
You can come back up. Is there an interest or a limitation of creating a zero lot line condition between parcels 2 and 3? And they have a zero lot line?
Mayor and Councilman, they would need a conditional use permit to do
that.
a townhouse, yeah.
Otherwise, there's, how wide are those lots? They're 45?
45, yep.
So they're long and narrow then. If they're going to create separation, they'd have to be at least, what, 5 feet off the property line or so?
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so what is the will of the council?
If we can show it again, I'll make it. Mayor and council, I move to approve the variance of NCC 10-8-5, requiring a minimum RS6 zoning district lot size of 6,000 square feet at 1405 East Amity Avenue for Jason Perkins, with all conditions listed in the staff report, and adopt the recommended findings and approval in this report.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Question.
Yes?
Does the conditions of approval, I guess it does, it states that the emergency vehicle turnaround is required. Even though it's not properly configured on the plat, it needs to be.
It says it shall be dimensioned as required by, it's in there.
Okay.
Yep.
Do we need to state that it
No.
was hardship?
Do we need to state?
Why we're
What's a variance?
Mayor, I've got all the recommended findings are in the staff report, so
Okay.
that would cover it.
So the motion would include in accordance with the findings and recommendations of the staff.
Okay. Adopt the recommended findings and approval. Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Roll call.
Pingula,
Yes.
Reynolds,
Yes.
Haverfield,
Yes.
Rodriguez,
Yes.
Brunner.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
Okay. We have two more public hearings. I have a quick question. Does the council need a bathroom break?
You
We've
already
been at
took
this
it.
for a while. You did? Does anyone else need a quick break? Are we okay? Do we need a quick break? I'm okay for the moment, yeah. Yeah, thank you. No, the reason he asked that question was because I said I needed to step away around 8:30, but I think I'll be fine. So if I do, even midterm, I'll let you know.
It
Thank you.
passed. You guys can go.
Thank you, guys. Yes.
Unless you're just enjoying this.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, we are ready for public hearing 8.3. This is an action item. This is a reconsideration request by the applicant of the City Council's decision to deny a comprehensive plan map amendment from commercial to industrial designation zoning map amendment from community business to light industrial, and a potential development agreement at 1508 and 1510 West Karcher Road. This is for Tyler DeLay representing Doris Young. And the original concept was to obtain the correct zoning for an existing land use of outdoor storage equipment for Young's Equipment addressed at 1502 West Karcher Road. And it was to construct a chain link security fence around the property. So I believe, is our applicant online this evening?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, thank you for sharing your name and address.
Yeah, my name is Tyler DeLay, and I live at 512 South Elder Street in Nampa.
Thank you. Go ahead and,
Okay.
yeah, thank you.
Yeah. First of all, thank you, Madam Mayor and council members, for your time. I understand that seeing or hearing a reconsideration is, implies that you've already heard this case before, so I wanted to thank you for the original time that you put into the original hearing and the original case, and then the additional time you're spending tonight with me. Last winter, my family and I filed for a rezone for our family business at 1502 West Karcher. 1502, 1508, and 1510 are conjoined parcels. They are all on the same property or part of the same property. Our family business has been operating at 1502 West Karcher Road in Nampa for nearly 50 years now. And we've taken a pivot in our business. And prior to the last few years, we've been serving the Treasure Valley farmers as farm equipment mechanics. However, now we're making a transition into renting out our space or our shop space for commercial tenants. That requires us to increase security because we've had some property theft on our property there at West Karcher. 1502, 1508, and 1510 are kind of in a weird situation because 1502, where the shop resides, we have the zoning light industrial 1508, which is the parcel directly to the south of 1502, and then 1510, the parcel to the south of 1508, are zoned business commercial. This is problematic for us because the city code for building a fence for business commercial requires that we have a two material fence. Currently, our fence at 1502 West Karcher is a single material fence. It's a chain link fence with barbed wire. We just like to extend that fence out to the edge of the 1508 parcel and not the 1510 parcel. City council members and the mayor voiced a couple of concerns from the previous hearing, and I'd like to address some of those. One was that Karcher is being developed to maintain an aesthetic appearance to match that of Caldwell Boulevard, which is zoned business commercial. Our response is that our property has never been used under the business commercial designation. It's always been used as a light industrial designation, and to continue keeping the property profitable and relevant, we need to maintain that light industrial designation. One of the city council members' concerns was accumulation of junk on the property. We've maintained a yard of materials and products for our clients, and because of our business shift to opening up the property and the yard for industrial tenants, we've been removing a lot of the old inventory that's been on that property for decades. So the property is actually itself cleaning up really nicely. So we're spending a lot of time to make this an attractive place for industrial, commercial renters and tenants, of which right now we have 5 who are serving the Nampa and Caldwell area. Let's see. Currently, we rent space to businesses that are also on the Caldwell Boulevard, Savers, and further up Caldwell Boulevard on Midland, Fran's Bakery. We rent them space. So that speaks to the relevance of the light industrial designation for zoning. And planning and zoning originally did approve of our request, but it was, again, like mentioned before, was denied by City Council. So I'd like to just address some of those concerns and see if we can make an appeal. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Council, do you have any questions for the applicant at this time?
Mayor, I do. Just need clarification. You said that the chain link fence would just go to the, what is it, 08?
Yeah.
So it would not be seen on Karcher Road, in other words.
So if you're on Karcher Road,
1510, you would not extend it to 1510.
Right, yep. So it's not going to be on the frontage.
Yeah, you're not going to be on the frontage of Karcher Road.
Right.
And I don't recall, with the last hearing, was that the plan at that point in time too, was just to do?
Yeah, that was.
Okay.
Yeah, that was the plan then. And, you know, currently our neighbors who are north, west, and east are zoned industrial. And if you go further up Karcher Road, the other industrial businesses are also using chain link and barbed wire on Karcher frontage, which again, we don't plan to do, but our neighbors are doing just the same. So it matches the neighborhood.
Okay, thanks for that clarification.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you so much. We will have staff report, and then after public hearing, we'll come back to you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Doug?
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Doug Critchfield, Planning and Zoning. So, as was mentioned by the applicant, the adjacent properties are industrial to the north, but it's commercial on either side of the properties. However, the property to the east is our industrial buildings. So it is zoned industrial, as you can see on the right-hand side on the map there. But the comprehensive plan is showing that as commercial. That'll be a correction that we'll have to make in a future update. So the property to the north is light industrial all the way across the Karcher bypass and to the north in that area. However, commercial is continuing to develop on Caldwell Boulevard in that area. Went out today and took some pictures of the site. This is looking from Karcher Road to the northwest. You can see the Karcher bypass in the background. There are some trailers on the property, as well as there's been some materials that have been changed on the property as well since the last time we presented this. This is a view from Karcher viewing to the northeast. This is on the west side of those trailers, again looking to the north. This is a view to the site looking to the east from where those commercial properties are. And the building back behind is that new industrial building that's been constructed on the east side of the property. And this is the industrial building. It's I didn't take pictures of it. This is a former picture, but this is what the complex looked like. It's now paved and operational. And this is a view from the Karcher bypass looking down onto the property. So the trailers are a different property. It's not part of the Young property. And then the Young property is behind these trailers, the storage area back here. So as was mentioned by the applicant, not to duplicate, the basis for the request has to do with the change in code that happened in March, where if this application were to come in after the March changes, they wanted to put up a fence, it would have had to been the fence that would pass design review. But because they came in February, they have the option of utilizing chain link fence with slats to screen what's behind the fencing there. This is as Councilmember Bruner was asking, the red line is the proposed fence line that will continue on with the chain link fence that already exists on the property. The services are available to the site, as we'd mentioned last time. These applicable regulations are in the staff report. And again, I'd be glad to review any of these, as well as the correspondence. There was nothing that was objectionable to the proposal. On the staff analysis, the one point that we wanted to make is that changes to the comprehensive plan, per our comprehensive plan, they should be periodic. They shouldn't be frequent. And the changes, they should be changes for larger geographic areas generally, or for corrections that need to be made, so we just talked about, or as part of a specific area plan process. And so in this instance, the change in the comprehensive plan is to avoid a spot zone in this area. And where staff has growing concern about these minor changes that are being made to the comprehensive plan, it's starting to look a little bit more like a zoning map than a future planning map. So that, in staff's opinion, I think we would caution ourselves as well as the council that we probably should consider making changes to the comprehensive plan on a less frequent basis and in a little bit larger areas that we need to pay attention to. The conditions approval are in the staff report. There were some conditions added by the engineering department, the last three. I don't know of any on-site wells or septic systems that exist, but they do need to be abandoned or removed at the time of property development if that occurs. So the motion before you this evening, being this is a reconsideration, is that if you decide to approve this project, we will need to have findings of fact to support the conclusions of law criteria, which are listed here, reasons why you think this should go forward in essence. If not, if you decide to deny this project, it would be based on the previously adopted findings for council on this project. And I'd be glad to take any questions.
Doug, could I ask you to go back several slides? You
You
had a
bet.
slide that actually reflected where the current fence was, and if we could just go back there and have enough, yeah, I think it's that one. So existing fence is in blue, and that is a chain link, is that correct?
Yes. Uh-huh.
Okay, and the proposed fence is in the red, and that, again, they're proposing a chain link fence again. You mentioned that that our new requirements, what would the new, if they had come in, they came in February. Because they came in February, they could come in with the chain link and have slats in it. But if they had come in March, what was the fencing that they would have had to have been put in then?
Yeah, whether, Mayor and Council, whether it was a industrial or a commercial designation, it would have had to follow the design reviewed code, which is right here. These are examples that would have to have fairly extensive fencing with at least two materials. Probably some type of iron fence with a stone base or wrought iron with wood slats. It's a much more expensive type of fencing. And the type of fencing that is required would have to, if there's a building on the site, it would have to meet the or match the building to some degree, and would have to go through the design review process.
Okay, thank you for answering that question. Okay. With that, Council, do you have any questions for Doug before we move to public hearing?
Mayor, I do really
Yes.
quick. Doug, can you go back to the slide that shows the trailers and then their property right behind it? So to be clear, there will be no fencing that separates those two properties, correct? We're not talking about that section at all.
Yes, Mayor, Council Member, yes, that's correct.
So it's an internal fence that we can't see from Karcher or the highway.
That would be correct. It would be viewed from Karcher Road, but not necessarily. It would be in the distance from the Karcher bypass.
It would be, did you say it would be viewed from Karcher Road? Is that correct?
Yeah, can you see what?
So if you look at this drawing, Karcher Road, you can see it's on here, Karcher bypass Highway 55. That view into the site is going to be behind the trailers and some of the equipment that's on the site. You probably wouldn't see it so much from that vantage point, but from West Karcher Road looking north, you would see it for sure.
Because it's to the south.
Yeah.
I mean, it's at the bottom of this. Okay. Thank you. Any other questions for Doug?
About what, I'm sorry, yes, Mayor. Doug, about what's the distance from what the proposed or red fence is to Karcher, West Karcher?
Just from my vantage point, it looks to be about 60 feet or so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay. All right. So this is, thank you, Doug.
You bet.
This is a public hearing.
Madam Mayor, we do not have anyone signed up.
Thank you. So is there, I think, is Dad here? Would you like to testify? Come on forward, share your name and address, and we would love to hear from you. It is a public hearing, and you might as well have the opportunity. Yeah, it's been a long wait.
Yeah, my name's Pat DeLay, 3006 East Denali Place in Nampa. And I run the business right now. And we're just trying to get it cleaned up, and like I said, the semi-trailers that are in front, they're renting that spot. Saver's been doing it for years. We've got 7 trailers in front that they have to switch out their product. And then Franz parks 3 there, and then we got another 2. So that fence, it might be probably a little more than 60 feet because these semi-trailers are 53 foot long. and they pull in there and they park their trailers there for us for the rental. But, yeah, and we're doing the fencing just for, safety, and, years past, they used to come in and, steal things, and so the fence helps deter it. And we'd planned on doing this earlier, but, then we had ready to do it, but we just didn't have the time, running the shop and all that, so we're finally getting the time in. But, yeah.
Thank you.
I guess that's it.
I appreciate you sharing. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Madam Mayor.
So is there anyone else here that had intended to testify on this particular matter? Okay. So this is an opportunity for our applicant to provide any closing comments or answer any questions from the council.
Yeah, again, thank you all for your time twice over on our appeal here. I also wanted to say thanks to the city employees who've been helping me out. Doug has been helping me a bunch too. I hate to hear that this has been creating, or this could potentially create more work for city employees. But again, I'm just hoping that we can get this figured out so that we can continue the family biz, and then keep it profitable, and keep moving forward. So yeah, thank you. That's the final thoughts there.
Council, thank you so much. And council, do you have any questions for the applicant before we close the public hearing? Okay. Seeing none, I would stand for a motion to close public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So what is the will of the council on this request for reconsideration?
Mayor, I move to approve the comprehensive plan map amendment from commercial to industrial designation, zoning map amendment from community business to light industrial zoning district, and potential development agreement at 1508, 1510 West Cartier Road. With all conditions listed in the staff report, and to adopt the following findings of factors support the conclusion of law criteria, which are already listed.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Brunner,
Yes.
Reynolds,
Yes.
Haverfield,
Yes.
Jingula,
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
Thank you. So we have one additional public hearing and a couple of new business items and unfinished business. I would like to ask for a 5-minute recess, and then we'll be right back, and Randy Haverfield's going to sit in my seat. So we're going to take a 5-minute to connect, and then we'll be right back. Okay, team, I think we're ready to get started again, and I think we're going to be done quickly, so here we go. So we are moving into action item 8.4. This is to confirm the assessment role for the Local Improvement District 167 for the purpose of constructing concrete curbs, gutter sidewalks, pedestrian ramps, drive approaches, and street improvements in Zone E. And our staff report is with Daniel. Thank you, Daniel.
Mayor, Council, this is just a normal sidewalk LID closeout. We've had, this sidewalk was done in Zone E. On the pitch, or on the screen shows the area and the properties. The actual assessment roll, there we go. Is shown here. We have properties ranging from just under $1,000 up to just over $6,000 for the assessments. And one that's just under $8,000. These are all volunteers. There were no required properties on this. None of these property owners have changed hands since the work was completed. And so just here to finish out the process so that we can do the assessments with Doug's group.
Daniel, thank you. Thank you for sharing that this is part of our voluntary LID, that it is not mandatory, and all of them chose to participate. So thank you so much. Council, do you have any questions? Okay. Daniel, thank you. This is a public hearing, and?
Madam Mayor, no one signed up for this item.
Thank you. Is there anyone here that had intended to testify on this particular item? Seeing none, I would stand for a motion to close public hearing.
So moved.
Thank you. And what is the will of the council?
Mayor, I'll go ahead and make the motion to confirm the assessment role for the Local Improvement District number 167, as stated in our packet, knowing that it's a voluntary LID.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Brunner.
Yes.
Reynolds. Absent. Jangula.
Yes.
Haverfield.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
That concludes our public hearings for this evening, and at this time, we're going to move to new business, and I do want to give my sincerest apologies for action item 7.3, that we've had a citizen waiting for this one, so I do apologize for that. It's been a long wait, so my apologies. Item 7.3 is an action item. This is to authorize the mayor to sign a non-development agreement for Leucadio, thank you, I always mess these things up. Village Subdivision Number 3. Daniel, thank you.
Mayor, Council, this is the non-development agreement we use in a situation where there are some improvements that are not able to be completed for one reason or another, but a developer wants to get the plat recorded. And so the main gist of the development or non-development agreement, it allows them to record the plat, create the lots. They are not able to sell the lots or pull building permits until the improvement is done and we release that. But for whatever business reason on their side, having the lots as platted lots rather than just development ground is advantageous to them. In this instance, it is work for the bridge over the Phyllis Canal that they cannot complete until the irrigation season is over. We've reviewed this. It's our standard non-development agreement that legal has reviewed in the past, and would just ask for authorization for the mayor to sign said agreement.
Daniel, thank you. Council, do you have any questions?
So
Okay.
move.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Roll call.
Rodriguez. No. Jangula.
Yes.
Haverfield.
Yes.
Reynolds.
Yes.
Brunner.
Yes.
4 in favor, 1 opposed, motion carries.
Thank you. And thank you for waiting tonight. I'm sorry you waited so long for that. Okay. 7.4 is an action item. This is to authorize the mayor and the public works director to sign a task order with 6 Mile Engineering for the North Franklin Boulevard and Cherry Lane Roundabout in the amount of $367,198. Time and material not to exceed, and this is approved in the FY23 budget.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
No.
Roll call.
Rodriguez. Brunner.
Yes.
Everfield.
I'll abstain. Okay, I'll vote for it.
Reynolds.
Yes.
Jingula.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
All
Awesome.
right. That's exciting.
Okay, Crystal, I'm sorry, you had to wait a long time for that tonight, too. Thank you. Okay, item 7.5 is an action item, and this is to award the bid and authorize the mayor to sign the construction contract with Excelsior Construction Company for the Hugh Nichols Public Safety Building Traffic Management Center and Incident Management Center remodel project for a total amount of $252,500, which includes a base bid of $232,000 and add alternate one of $20,500. It has been approved by legal, and it is approved in the FY23 budget.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Madam Mayor, I'd
Yes.
just like to say thanks to Brian for your hard work on this. I know it's been a process, and thanks for sticking with it. The bids look good. They were a lot tighter this go-around. I like that, and thanks for your hard work.
Yep, and thank you, Councilor Reynolds. It was well worth the wait. We were able to work this into the schedule, and we were able to get more bids and save a lot of money. So it worked out really good for all of us.
Great. Councilman Haverfield, did you have a
Yeah, I was
question?
just curious as far as what the overall budget was. Is that listed here?
Yeah, the overall budget for this portion of the work was $553,000 is what had been set aside for that.
And the bid was at 232 plus the alternate, so we're half of what your budget was. That's pretty cool.
Mhm. That's the way we want them to come in.
Yeah, we don't see that very often.
No, but it's important.
We like it when we see 'em.
For, what's going to be coming further down the road, who knows?
I hope so. Thank you. Okay, so it has been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Brunner.
Yes.
Everfield.
Yes.
Jingula.
Yes.
Reynolds.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
Item 7.6 is an action item. It's the first reading of an ordinance amending Title II, Chapter 14, Section 1 of the Nampa City Code that's reviding the provisions regarding the terms of appointment for the Venue Management Advisory Commission members. This has been reviewed and approved by legal, and I will say it's requested to pass under suspension of rules, and I want to say it's something that I recommended to Rick, so I don't know that we need a presentation. We had a number of commission appointments that were all expiring at the same time. I don't think that's wise. I think that they need to be staggered. So this rewrite of the ordinance is to actually put the staggered terms in for the Venue Management Advisory Commission. Todd, do you have any comment? We're good? Okay. So it is requested to pass under suspension of rules.
An ordinance of the City of Nampa, Idaho, amending Title II, Chapter 14, Section 1 of the Nampa City Code, revising provisions regarding the terms of appointment for Venue Management Advisory Commission members, providing for severability, providing for an effective date, and repealing all ordinances, rules, and regulations and parts thereof in conflict herewith.
Make a motion to approve on suspension of rules.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Roll call.
Brunner.
Yes.
Jingula.
Yes.
Haverfield.
Yes.
Reynolds.
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
Item 7.7 is an action item. This is to authorize the mayor to sign the Idaho Power customer cost quote to schedule the installation of electrical service for the Fort Idaho Center Horse Park RV parking project in the amount of $102,448. It was approved in the FY23 and 24 budgets.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Just one comment,
Yes.
Mayor, if I might. I did request through Patrick one modification to the proposed agreement with Idaho Power. That was just to add that language that we always add about to the extent permitted by Idaho law when it comes to indemnification. So just wanted to note that.
Thank you, Todd. I appreciate that. Thank you.
I need to put that
Thank you for your review.
in the motion.
If you could just note that that's included in your motion for approval, because it's not in the version in the packet. We just wanted to note that.
It hasn't been noted.
So,
And second.
My second's good.
okay.
Or third, or whatever.
Or third, okay. So duly noted in the motion. Thank you. Roll call.
Rodriguez.
I made the motion.
Roll call. You still have to vote.
Oh, Usually go for it.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
I actually had Councilmember Reynolds, too many of you guys.
I second it.
Okay,
So did Natalie.
yes.
Okay, and now we're into the roll call vote.
Yes.
So let's start again.
Brunner,
Yes.
Jingula.
Yes.
Haverfield,
Yes, ma'am.
Reynolds.
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
Thank you. That concludes our new business items, and now we're on to unfinished business. We have 3 items here. Item 9.1 is an action item. This is the first reading of ordinance of annexation and zoning to Community Business Zoning District for 4.69 acres addressed at 2522 and 2508 North Middleton Road. This is for Northwest Village Development. Randy Haverfield, representing TV Holdings, LLC, and Zion Ventures. Go ahead. Oh, and it is requested to pass under suspension of rules.
Mayor? I
Yes.
guess I'll be abstaining from this vote,
Thank you.
if you'll let me.
Yes.
An ordinance of the City of Nampa, Idaho, determining that certain lands commonly known as 2522 and 2508 North Middleton Road, Nampa, Idaho, county parcels R244560040 and R244560060, comprising approximately 4.69 acres, more or less, lay contiguous to the limits of the City of Nampa, Canyon County, State of Idaho, and that said land should be annexed into the City of Nampa and be zoned BC Community Business, declaring said lands by proper legal description as described below to be a part of the City of Nampa, determining that said annexation and zoning are in the best interest of the public and consistent with the comprehensive plan of the city, directing the city engineer and planning and zoning director to add said property to the official maps of the City of Nampa and to designate said property as BC Community Business on the official zoning map and other area maps of the city, providing for recordation, providing for severability, providing an effective date, repealing all ordinances, resolutions, orders, or parts thereof in conflict herewith, and directing the city clerk to file a certified copy of the ordinance and the map of the area to be annexed with Canyon County, State of Idaho, and the Idaho State Tax Commission pursuant to Idaho Code Section 63-215.
Madam Mayor, I move this pass under suspension of rules.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion? Roll call.
Rodriguez.
No.
Jingula.
Yes.
Brunner.
Yes.
Reynolds.
Yes.
3 in favor, 1 opposed, motion carries.
Item 9.2 is an action item. It's the first reading of ordinance of annexation and zoning to RS 8.5, single-family residential zoning district for a .99 acre parcel at 2303 Pasco Lane for Rick Bergman. And it is requested to pass under suspension of rules.
An ordinance of the City of Nampa, Idaho, determining that certain lands commonly known as 2303 Pasco Lane, Nampa, Idaho, county parcel R292800000, comprising approximately .99 acres, more or less, lay contiguous to the limits of the City of Nampa, Canyon County, State of Idaho, and that said land should be annexed into the City of Nampa and be zoned RS 8.5 single-family residential, declaring said lands by proper legal description as described below to be a part of the City of Nampa, determining that said annexation and zoning are in the best interest of the public and consistent with the comprehensive plan of the city, directing the city engineer and the planning and zoning director to add said property to the official maps of the City of Nampa and to designate said property as RS 8.5 single-family residential on the official zoning map and other area maps of the city, providing for recordation, providing for severability, providing an effective date, repealing all ordinances, resolutions, orders, or parts thereof in conflict herewith, and directing the city clerk to file a certified copy of the ordinance and the map of the area to be annexed with Canyon County, State of Idaho, and the Idaho State Tax Commission pursuant to Idaho Code Section 63-215.
Is there a motion?
Make a motion to pass under suspension of rules?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Roll call.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Brunner.
Yes.
Jingula.
Yes.
Reynolds.
Yes.
Haverfield.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
9.3 is an action item. It's the first reading of ordinance amending Title 5, Chapter 12, Sections 16 and 17 of Nampa City Code, adding an alcohol beverage catering requirement, adding language regarding the assessing of points for an alcohol beverage catering permit, and adding procedures for a hearing on license suspensions or revocations, adding new members to the Alcohol Review Committee, and notice provisions to license holders. It is requested to pass under suspension of rules.
So moved.
Second.
I think she has to read it. Plus,
That's okay.
plus, after you read it, I do have a question, okay?
Okay.
No time for questions. Been moved and seconded.
An ordinance enacted by the Napa City Council amending Title V, Chapter 12, Sections 16 and 17 of the Napa City Code, adding an alcohol beverage catering requirement, adding language regarding the assessment points for an alcohol beverage catering permit, adding procedures for a hearing on license suspensions or revocations, adding new members to the Alcohol Review Committee and notice provisions to license holders, providing for an effective date, providing for severability, and repealing all ordinances, resolutions, orders, and parts thereof in conflict herewith.
So moved.
Second.
Under suspension of rules.
It's been moved and seconded, and I believe we have a question.
So just clarification. So in the first discussion, we talked about as far as, and it said in the paragraph, but not what I read as far as in the final ordinance, that we are allowing them more than 2 alcohol catering permits per month, correct?
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Brunner, correct. We actually removed all of that wording. We removed the wording that stated more than 2 times per month for use at the
So we're
same
not
location.
limiting a business, okay.
Right, we're
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make sure that I was being consistent in my voting, because I know I did not.
And Madam Mayor, just to make one other point, we did add another item, D, which was regarding may not be issued for use within 300 feet of a school or church unless
Right.
waived by the city council.
I'm fine with that.
Could, to answer the I have another question, and that is, could you remind me what we did to offset the limiting it to 2 times in a month?
I'm sorry.
Well, we removed the language.
Right.
To not limit them at the same location, but what did we do to offset that challenge?
Madam Mayor, we did not add any other items. We just removed that language from the section A, and then we added D regarding the 300 feet of a school or church. So we did not, there's no restriction for them, except for what was already there at the last time regarding that a permit shall not be issued to a person or for the benefit of another person who is operating 2 or more separate establishments under one license, or for the benefit of a person whose alcohol license has been revoked, canceled, denied, or suspended. That still remained in there.
So that
Thank
covered the
you.
challenge that we were having, right? Okay.
Yes, thank you. Are there any other questions? Hearing none, roll call.
Rodriguez. Yes. Brunner.
Yes.
Reynolds.
Yes.
Jingula.
Yes.
Haverfield.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
That concludes our meeting this evening, and I would stand for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I thank you.
Yeah.